Welcome back to the channel. In this masterclass video, we are gonna go through the A to Z of business credit card funding. We're gonna start at the very beginning, talk about setup, then we're gonna talk about NAICS codes, then we're gonna talk about credit funding itself, and probably go beyond that, right? So this is gonna be an entire A to Z on everything that you need to know. This is by far the most requested topic that we've gotten in the last 6 months is, hey, give us a literal play-by-play, step-by-step of everything. Net 30s, vendor accounts, fleet gas cards, where to go to get business funding, what to do after everything's set up. Give us all of that. So before we dive in, this is gonna be a little bit different than previous masterclasses that we've done, because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be giving you an introduction to each one of the videos, and then, or each one of the training sessions, and then afterwards, I'm gonna do a recap or some sort of roundup at the end, and things to take away and things to focus on. And the reason why I wanted to do it like this is because we've now got an additional 12 or 14 months of community data that I'm gonna be integrating into these little post-ops, these little AARs, after action reports that I'm gonna give you. So that is probably gonna be one of the most valuable pieces of this outside of the training. So grab a notepad, get a fresh pot of coffee cooking, and sit down, buckle up, and let's dive in. Build business funding from scratch. In this video, we're gonna go through the step-by-step process that you need to follow to build up a brand new LLC and then go and get business funding. Now, like I said, this is gonna be just part one. We're gonna go through an entire series this year where you follow me, look over my shoulder as I set up my own LLC, as I go through all the steps and processes that you need to follow to set this up right and then go and get business funding. This is gonna be a great series. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I've been putting this together for a long time now, and I'm excited to start. So let's dive into part one now. I want to now give you an entire series, which will be going on throughout the entire year, this year and maybe even next year, where we break down, start to finish, the entire process of like, okay, I'm raising my hand, I wanna go out and I wanna get business credit. How do I do that? Where do I start? Going all the way back to setting up the entity, picking out the business name, business classification, all of those things. And then from there, all the way to business funding. So I think this is gonna be a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoy this. This was built with you guys in mind, all of you, the viewers, the community. We love you guys. And this is just another way of us, giving back. You guys show us love, watch these videos, share them, help us grow. We gain more influence, and then we, give back with hopefully really, really valuable series like this. So I'm very excited about this, if you couldn't tell. And so let's dive into it. We are going to essentially break down what I'm gonna do, and then in subsequent videos, I'm gonna go and do it. And the only reason why I'm doing it like that is because there's a lot involved, and I wanna set a lot of context just right from the get-go before we even dive into it. So this is like your framework, and this is the framework that we're gonna follow. Similar to how we broke down a framework to go and get 100K, how to fix your credit. All these things were they're built off of our experience with my credit profile, my businesses, people in the community, and now, hundreds, if not thousands of credit profiles and people we've touched and seen do similar. We're just, once again, syndicating information. It's such a beautiful thing, right? Here we are 2 years later, we're still doing the same thing we did in the very beginning. We are attempting to go out and syndicate information so that you get a more condensed version of the process. And hopefully it's gonna be more polished and refined for you when you go to apply it. All right, let's talk about the entity itself. I'm not gonna get into which type of entity to form. We've actually got, I think, 2 or 3 videos on the channel already, but let's just say you're gonna do an LLC. For the sake of this example, we're gonna be talking about LLC terms. What I end up going and setting up, and you guys follow along with, I'm telling you now, I'm gonna go and set up an LLC. Now, the great thing is that I can classify that from a tax designation down the road as an S Corp if I wanted to, right? But I'm not setting up any corporations in this. We are going LLC route. Okay, so we've got some fees right out of the gates, and we got some decisions to be made before we even get started. So let's lay those out for you right here, right now. First off, I use a company called Northwest Registered Agent. It's the cheapest I could find that still keeps quality service. It doesn't sacrifice quality for the price that they charge. So it's $39 to set up an LLC. You will get charged, unless you go do this yourself, to set up the LLC itself. Then there's 2 additional charges. We've got a state filing fee, and then we've got a registered agent fee. If we want to do business in other states, besides the one that we set up the LLC in, we will also have foreign filing fees. So let's go through these one at a time. The setup LLC fee, $39 with Northwest. I think that's extremely cheap, considering LegalZoom is $150 plus state filing fees. This is a lot cheaper than that. And plus, we need to, cut corners, or not cut corners, but save money where we can, because this isn't cheap to set all this up. You'll see. Next, we got state filing fee. So the average state filing fee is $132 as of 2023. You could get it as cheap as, I think, $50. California is free until June of 2023 to set it up, but California is $800 a year. Somewhere like Arizona is $50, and you never have to renew it ever again. So there's a lot of different options there. You're definitely going to want to take it into consideration where you set up. We'll talk more about that in just a minute. Next, we've got the registered agent fee. So I don't know how expensive this can get. I just know what I've paid because I've now done this like 2 or 3 different times. It was somewhere between $100 to $150. With Northwest, they got a flat rate fee of $125 per year. I'll take it. Okay, so I'll just use them. Like I said, if you're gonna do business in multiple states, you set up the LLC in one state, and then you have to do what's called a foreign filing or a foreign LLC, which is just a yearly fee in any other state that you want to do business in. Now, you want to talk to your accountant about this if you've got confusion. You're not going to get taxed in both states, and there's a lot you need to think through on this. But those fees can get pretty high as well. That can be $500 plus for a foreign filing fee in additional states. Now, if you wanted to do business in every single state on the ground, this might get expensive. Understand this is not covering like e-commerce and Amazon FBA and things like that. Now, I don't really know where that stands because if you notice recently, Amazon started charging statewide tax. So I think we're moving towards that. But at this point in time, unless you're physically there with a location, that's my understanding that you're gonna get state tax. Now, federal tax won't change anything, but you're only gonna get taxed in the state you did the transaction in. You're not gonna get taxed in both states if you're doing business in multiple states and have foreign filings. Understand? So the average foreign LLC or foreign filing fee is $186 as of 2023. The only other thing you gotta think about is if you need to get any sort of business licensing. So obviously if you're gonna go sell real estate or if you're gonna do something specialized, there's gonna be licensing, there's gonna be certifications that you need to get in order to even do that. That's the only other thing I'd say take into consideration. All that aside, now let's dive into it. I've got, what do I got here? I got a list of 16 different items. Let's try and fly through this as quick as possible, right? I'm gonna try my hardest not to drill down super deep because we're gonna have, like I said, subsequent videos for each of the big moving parts. Number 1, decide what state you wanna incorporate in. Okay, number 2, double check the business name. We're gonna show some B-roll right now on the screen. This is basically a list of every single Secretary of State for you to check the business name itself. If the business name is already taken in that state, you can't register it. So you're gonna wanna make a list of like 5 business names, maybe 10, just in case the first couple aren't available in the state that you wanna register in. Just go through that. The next thing I would suggest is number 3 is that we wanna make sure that no trademarks exist. Trademark is kind of a lot scarier thing than it needs to be, but in short, if somebody has a trademark on the name, on logos, on the mark, the word or some sort of logo or design, they can come after you at any point with a cease and desist and basically tell you to stop doing business. So if we're gonna do anything online, or if we think this business might blow up, or we're trying to run volume through it, millions of dollars per year, I'd say anything over 100,000 per year, we're probably gonna wanna make sure, extra sure that there's no trademarks that exist. So right now you'll see on the screen, this is probably your best place to go and check. It's Justia, and just search the word that you're looking to use, or search the mark itself and see what exists. There's different categorizations and classifications for the trademarks itself. So just understand if that you're going into real estate and you see that name and it says real estate, that means no. If you see that name and it says, food or, some other completely different niche or market over here, and you want to do real estate, you're probably okay. Make sense? Outside of that, you're going to want to seek some sort of professional guidance because I'm not that guy. Okay. Next, we have 2 things that need to happen simultaneously. You notice how we're not even set up the LLC yet? The next 2 things that we need to do is we need to set up a business phone number and we need to set up a business address. So let's start with the address because I want to wrap up this whole registered agent conversation. So a registered agent is basically just somebody, business address, an entity, a person, a location that is inside the state that acts as the agent for the business. This is where all the mail can go. This is what you can use to register on all your business paperwork, on your bank accounts, on credit card applications. You can use this, it's fine. You can use this on your website. That's where all your mail is gonna go. That's also where anything legally, will go as well. And so having an actual registered agent who's used to this, who can handle these situations is always gonna be better. But understand, you can set yourself up as a registered agent. With the whole business address conversation, please do not use your personal address for anything. Don't think I'm just gonna put my personal address and I'm gonna change it later. The minute that you register or put that address and submit it on anything, on a government document, on a article of organization or incorporation, it's gonna be filed publicly. and you'll never be able to come back from that. I know that some people are gonna wanna cheap out. I'm saying this from a security standpoint. You don't wanna be doing this. It's putting you at risk. It's associating your address publicly with this business, with your name. None of it's a good idea, guys. Please, please, trust me when I say that. The $120 to $300 per year that you think you're saving is not worth it. It is 100% not worth it. Registered agent, if you are not planning on setting up a Google My Business account, trying to drive traffic locally, drive ads, if you're not looking to do any of those things, a registered agent is fine. So $125 a year, we're done, dusted. I don't need a PO box. I don't need a UPS store address. I don't need any of that. I can just stick with the registered agent and I'm good. Now, if I want beyond that, or if I want to register myself under Google My Business, which is GMB for short, I have to take a different approach. So I've got 3 different options for you here. One of them will not work for Google My Business, but this is just something else outside of registered agent that you could look at. And then the other 2, if you do it right, they will work with Google My Business. All right, let's dive in. First one is anytime mailbox. And the reason why I'm suggesting this specific one is because we have somebody in the community that used this as a business address, and they were able to get in with a very conservative credit union. The fact that they were able to get approved at any credit union tells you all you need to know about this type of an address. So anytime mailboxes, I think would be just fine down the middle if you want to do it that way. Again, if you set yourself up as a registered agent, or if you've got a registered agent, but you wanted a separate address, you could set up just a simple PO box like that, and you're off to the races with any mail forwarding, and then obviously using this on applications, business registrations, etc. Anytime mailbox, I think it starts at like $10 a month. So that is like bottom tier. With that and a registered agent, those are like the lowest possible prices you could probably get. You might be able to find something for like $5 a month. I doubt it. I don't even think PO boxes are that cheap anymore. Now let's talk middle ground. Middle ground would be Alliance Virtual Office. Again, this is coming directly from the community. We have somebody who went and used this as their address and got approved with BMW financing, which again, like very conservative. They're gonna be checking T's, crossing T's, dotting I's. They're gonna be double checking all your paperwork. So the fact that that address worked speaks volumes. Also too, it tells you right on the website that, hey, if you set this up right, it will work for Google My Business. And again, you can just Google search this and get into, you wanna dive into these rabbit holes of like the SEO guys. That's not me, but there are specific guys who will kind of tell you and walk you through how to use Alliance Virtual Office, and then the other one that we'll talk about in just a second. So what you can expect here is about $200 setup fee, and I think it starts at $17 a month. In a major metropolitan area, you're probably $50 to $100 a month. They've got VoIP options for you, phone answering services, mail forwarding services. So again, you could put all of this in one if you wanted to, your phone and your mail forwarding. So that would just be getting all of that rolled under one umbrella. So that's like your kind of like your mid-tier option. Right above that, or maybe in that same group, is Regis. I'm sure you've heard of Regis before. This is an international company, so a little bit bigger. They've got a lot bigger infrastructure. They've got a membership component as well. But this is like $200 plus per month in most major cities, right? And then they've also got options for, answering services, mail forwarding, et cetera, et cetera. And again, if you set that up right, you will be able to use it with Google My Business. Hopefully those 4 options will get you started there. And then you'll see what I do when we go through and set all this up as well. Okay, so next is business phone number. That just leaves that left. We've got a few different options here. What's great is that this whole market is kind of like the same. You log in, they're like the same back end, the same kind of dashboard they give you. They're all about the same price, and the cost per minute is all about the same. There's just little differences between the 3. So there's 3 that I've used. I've used Grasshopper, I've used phone.com, and I've used 800.com. Not overly impressed with either 3. I've used like phone.com consistently for like 5 years. I really don't like it. How it shows up with the call forwarding on my cell phone, or let's say I'm forwarding that, you could even forward that to a Skype number, which I've done in the past. It's not that great. I don't know where the call is coming from all the time because the caller ID doesn't always work. That being said, they do have a full area that you can log into and like have answering service occurring. So if you had your own person to answer the phones, or if you did this during the day, I think you would have a lot better success than what I've had. But that's one option you've got, is just use one of these out-of-the-box services where they're gonna give you an 800 number or a localized number, and then they're gonna give you a certain amount of incoming, outgoing minutes per month. And they start at like $19 a month, go up to 30 or 40. The other option that you've got, which I like this option better, is to go and get a phone contract for the business. Because we're doing 2 things here. We're getting a trade line opened up and established, and we're getting the phone number established. So all I've ever used is T-Mobile. I've used it like 3-4 times now, so that's the one I've got the most experience with and or helped the most people with. But I assume that Verizon and AT&T have similar. Business lines now are like really cheap. and they're just throwing out iPhone 14s like Skittles, or iPads, or really whatever you want. Each one of those would just operate as its own line. So we could get our business phone number set up under our business, and I think it's somewhere between like 60 to 80 bucks, depending on, you're gonna have to pay a little bit of money up front based on your credit. They are gonna run your personal credit, but it's all set up and established under the business, so it's not gonna report to your personal credit, right? Even though I think they pull your personal credit to approve you. Then, yeah, each line is an additional fee until you pay off basically the phone, and then, or the device, and then from there, the price gets cheaper because you're just paying for the line and the service, right? I like that option better. So we could also, with that, set up an 800 number that forwards to that cell phone if we wanted to. So if we wanted to just keep one generic 800 number and keep that forever, regardless of what phone service we keep, because we might not keep that forever, then what we would want to do is just get an 800 number that forwards to the business cell phone number. So every time that rings, we know that's business, right? I like that. I like clear-cut division in that. Okay, so let's quickly recap here. We've got our name picked out. We double-checked to make sure that it's still available. There's no trademarks going on. We've also got our registered agent or address set up, and we've got our phone number set up. So what's left? What we need to do now is obviously file for the LLC. That brings us to number 7, which now we need to open up the LLC. Like I said, I use Northwest. They are just $39. There'll be a link in the description. Yes, that helps support the channel. So if you want to use them, thank you. If not, you can use whoever you like, right? Which I use either Northwest, or I'm set up with Anderson Advisors, and they set up for us as well. So either one. Okay, number 8, submit your articles of organization. Number 9, we need to file for our EIN. You'll see on the screen right now, we'll be bringing up the irs.gov website where you can file for your EIN number, okay? Next, from there, we're starting to get into specific items now. We need to set up our Dun & Brad number after we get our EIN. So we need to get our Dun & Brad set up so that we can start to get what's called a Paydex score. So again, on the screen, we will show the Dun & Brad. And then the other thing I want to show right now, guys, is let's go ahead and cut in. If you have no clue what a Paydex score is, we have a full page breakdown on walletmonkey.io, but let's just quickly show you that section of the page where it explains Paydex, which is a score between 0 and 100. More on that another video. But right here, I do want to mention that Dun & Brad also offers a credit builder, which is $149 per month. I don't know how valuable that is. That's pretty expensive. I think there's better solutions out there. They do offer you with this a feature that will allow you to manually submit your trade lines. So if you have trade lines that aren't showing up, or vendor accounts that aren't showing up, you could manually submit that. That doesn't mean that it's guaranteed to show up. That's why I don't really like it. Okay, anyways, 11, we need to set up business checking account now. This is pretty easy. All we need to do is, I suggest going into the branch itself for whatever bank that you want to set up and establish at, and bring your articles of organization or articles of incorporation. It might be named something different in your state. And then you obviously want your EIN number, phone number, your address, all that information ready and available. And then if you've set up more than one owner, or managing member, as it's called, you're going to want to have their information as well. But I'm assuming that you're setting this up for you and that you are the main managing member with 75% or more ownership. If that's true, you're just going to fill out the business address and information. You're going to put in your personal information, and then we're going to go ahead and get set up for that, that checking account. We need that checking account so we can start to operate business expenses out of that checking account. So then from there, we want to set up some sort of direct deposit or regular ACH into that business bank account, so that first off, we can start to build up transactional history with the bank, but also too, so we can start to actually run our business. All right, congratulations. You made it through the bulk of the material. There we are, 16 minutes in. The rest that I've got for you is just a little icing on the cake. These are trade lines that you might want to get for things like credit monitoring or vendor accounts, things that you might need already. And then of course, fleet gas cards. Now you can leave right now. I just ask that please give this video a like, share it with a friend so that we can, continue to get more eyes on this. But if you want the rest, let's call this extra credit. We're about to dive into that now. I hope you enjoyed. And again, comment below if you got something to say. Okay, 12 through 16, these are immediately us diving into getting trade lines. And so you could walk away with somewhere between 5 to 8 trade lines right out of the gates, right here, right now. Okay, so let's go through these one at a time. Understand that you could, with a 685 credit score, go in right now and start to get credit with this brand new entity. They're gonna probably be lower trade lines, but we could go to most major big banks, right? Bank of America, Amex, Chase, and we could go get credit with them right now. You're gonna have to sign on the dotted line as a personal guarantor. And like I said, the trade lines are gonna be smaller if you're at a 685. If you're over 700, you're gonna probably get higher limits, right? But we could go do that right now. And nobody's saying that you can't. What I'm saying with this and what we're gonna break down is just some really easy trade lines that hopefully represent things that you actually need for the business. So we're kind of killing two birds with one stone. Cool? So that's the rest of this video. If you want to just, exit now, that's cool. But yeah, let's dive into this. Pick 2 to 5 trade lines. We've got a whole video where we cover 13 tier 1 or net 30 vendor accounts, right? This is stuff like Quill, office supply companies. This is Creative CEO, where you can get shirts, mugs, and any kind of things designed for the business itself. So if you want to quickly outfit like yourself, maybe a few other staff, you could go and get that done there. If you want some branded stationery items, things like that, that's where you would go to get those things, right? So there's a lot of different options. You can even get, some of them offer business plans. We got everything in there, right? We got Granger, Uline. So the few that I wrote down is Creative CEO, because I figure you're gonna probably want a couple, at least nice polo shirts, maybe a couple coffee cups or I don't know, stationary items. You're gonna want Uline because at some point we're gonna have to be packaging boxes and shipping boxes. So they sell boxes, they sell the stuff to fill it, like the little peanuts inside or the packaging materials inside. They sell the brown paper that you need, the tape, everything, the packaging station itself. So I figured that, most small businesses are gonna be doing some sort of shipping and receiving. So that's why Uline would probably make sense there. And the third one is some office supply solution, right? So there's a few here, but Quill is the one that everyone knows. And again, Quill out of the gates, they don't always give you net 30. Sometimes you gotta buy once, and the second or third time they'll open you up for net 30. It's just gonna depend. That being said I assume you're gonna need some sort of office supplies, so that fits there. So if you got all 3, now we got 3 trade lines, and if we got T-Mobile, now we got 4. Okay, so we're already at 4 trade lines right out of the gates, and it's just stuff we need that the business needs to actually operate, right? So let's take that a step further. We can now go get fleet gas cards. Fleet gas cards are one of the easiest things to get. We covered that on a channel in a dedicated video as well. I think it was back in 2021 though. Understand that the information hasn't changed that much, okay? On a brand new LLC in the community right now, we have people going and getting shell cards, golf, and Kanoko or Kanako, however you want to say it. I always say Kanako to mess with people, but I believe you call it Kanoko. So those 3 cards are extremely easy to go get right now with no trade lines reporting and no business history, fairly easy to get. So I wouldn't say get all 3, but 1 or 2 would work. Okay, so now we got another 1 or 2 trade lines right there. You see how this is starting to add up? Because we want to be with the business somewhere between 5 to 7, and then let that report for a statement or 2, and then we go out and we start to see how well this business can stand on its own with getting trade lines without personal guarantor. 14, set up a Divvy account. So a Divvy account, they used to have 2 different programs. They used to have, you would submit your application and they would either approve you for the credit card, and if they couldn't approve you for that, they would put you into the Credit Builder program. Credit Builder program, they are no longer doing. Again, this is typical growing pains of any new fintech. So instead, they've just got the credit card account. Good news is, it's no hard pull. So we could go and apply to that and see if we can get approved. That is another trade line that will be reporting to the SBFE, Dun & Brad, et cetera, et cetera. And now let's wrap up 15 and 16. We've got TILFL or NAV. Now, let me explain the difference between the 2. They are both business credit score solutions. The difference is TILFL has 2 additional programs with it. Like you can go for free right now and start getting your business credit score. They're only offering 1 though. It's the IntelliScore. So this is the Experian IntelliScore. And then on top of that, you can actually do their Credit Builder program, which you can do somewhere between $20 to $50 a month. And that is just gonna get reported as a trade line. Think of it like self or a installment loan on the personal end, but it's on the business, right? And then the other program that they've got is a secured credit card. Minimum is $500. And again, that would also be reporting, and they report to all the major bureaus as well. NAV, on the other hand, is way more involved. They offer you a lot more credit scores. Let me go through the list here. They offer you IntelliScore Plus version 2, Paydex, which is just Dun & Brad number, Equifax Business Delinquency Score, and the FICO SBSS, which is actually a pre-screen for, I believe, 1 or 2 of the SBA loan programs. So this is a juicy one. So you can actually see your odds and likelihood of an SBA loan within this as well. And they are, I believe, $49.99 per month. If you get a quarterly, if you pay quarterly up front, you get 20% off the first quarter, and then it's like regular price. But for $50 a month, well worth it, because you also get personal Experian Vantage 3.0 and TransUnion Vantage, which I know aren't great, but inside of there, they've also got their matching engine to match you up with business loans, business credit products, and things like that. And on the personal side, they do as well. So there's a lot involved there, and it reports as a trade line. If we went through this list properly, we could end up, like I said, with somewhere between like 5 to 8 trade lines reporting already, starting to establish some history. Okay, hope you enjoyed that. I know that we went through a ton of data, but there is a few takeaways that I want to give you and things to focus on. Okay, first big thing. is I notice a ton of people get caught up in the actual cost to, launch an LLC. And so immediately when it's over a couple $100, people are like, well, do I really need to do this? Should I just go and do a sole prop under my social security number? Do I just not do it at all? Look, the cost of doing business is the cost of doing business. So on the cheap side, if you really wanted to, scrounge and bootstrap this thing, I think you could probably get away with maybe $250 for all of it, all the setup costs. Just keep in mind that this might actually end up costing you more in the long run if you got to go back and change the state that you're registered in, if you need to go and change your address or do a change of address. Some of these things can cost money if you're not doing it on your own or depending on what you're trying to do with it. So just keep that in mind. I would say what you should expect comfortably is somewhere between $500 to $1,500 in terms of like setting up. So setting up the business, getting a virtual office or a virtual address, all the other stuff that you've got to set up, domains, website, hosting, themes, websites, all of that, right? I'd say expect somewhere in there. Now, if you go and get a professional website designed, you're like somewhere between $10,000 and maybe $100,000 now. So just keep that in mind as well. I'd probably suggest something like Squarespace or that has a template that you can just kind of edit and change out your text, especially to get up off the ground. Again, we're just trying to show. Okay, so I feel like I could dive real deep into Google My Business now at this point. That is something that's always changing. So I would just suggest that if you do want to focus on that, and if that is going to be important for you as a local business, that a lot of these PO boxes and these like anytime are not really going to work for that. And that pivots me into my next topic, which is that the most success that we've now seen, and this is across dozens of people in the community, is Alliance virtual offices and something like a Regis or a real physical address, meaning that I am renting a commercial space or something that's zoned properly as its own dedicated address for my business. Those three options are gonna give you the best success. Now, with Alliance, it is, I think, the cheapest one out of the three, because we can set up call forwarding, we can set up mail through there, we can set up everything that we want, right? So that I think is on the cheaper end, and we've heard really great success with that. So getting into credit unions, getting business credit through big banks, and then also too getting funded through car dealerships like BMW Finance went through with one of them, and I think a couple others. So Alliance, I've heard the most about. And then secondly would be a real address. So Regis I put in there too, because Regis for the most part, they do okay with Google My Business. And then as long as you've got an actual office space that you're renting there, and it's not like open co-op that you're paying for, you should be just fine with that. So anyways, those are the big takeaways for the setup of the business and everything that you need to really be focused on there, right? Okay, next up, let's talk about NAICS codes. This is another one of those huge topics. I've actually got 2 dedicated training videos for you for this section. Biggest thing that I need to say right here, right now, before you even dive in, is that when I start throwing around words like high risk, people immediately equate high risk equals no funding. Stop, okay? There are all kinds of high-risk businesses that get funded all the time and all day long. We're not talking about marijuana businesses or liquor or strip clubs, okay? We're talking about like digital programs, digital marketers, some service-based businesses, real estate. Some of the real estate codes are wrapped up into higher risk categories as well. So please remember, higher risk does not equal no funding. All it means is that it's not just gonna be this, down the middle, slam dunk, easy, and sometimes even more flexible. We might have to provide POI. We might have to have a longer relationship with the bank. We might have to jump through some additional hoop, or sometimes there's no additional hoops at all. So please just remember, as you're going through all this training, is that high risk does not equate no credit funding. It doesn't mean run away from this. It doesn't mean lie and come up with some whole new category over here because you think it's gonna be better when your business is way over there. It's not what that means. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into the videos now. In this video, we're gonna talk about picking a business name. So obviously, we went through the full breakdown of what we're trying to do here. And one of the most important pieces, believe it or not, is actually picking the name. Picking the name and trademark is actually way more important than I think most people realize. So let's talk about this. I'm actually referencing this page right here. This is part of our mastermind. So if you're a mastermind member, you get access to this. But for us in this video, I wanted to show you this. There's a lot to go over. It all really comes back to the classification in the NAICS code base, which you'll see it's just naics.com/search. You can go there and search for yourself. Also too, they put out this high risk and cash intensive industries. Essentially, this is like their warning system of industries they kind of want you to avoid. This will be industries that are harder to underwrite for. Banks are going to be more strict on. You might run into issues with the IRS if the amount of revenue that you've got doesn't match up to the industry, and a plethora of other things that you might run into. But this list is not up to date. So So this list is a little bit old, and they don't plan on updating this because it says 2022 to 2027. So I don't think they plan on updating this anytime soon. So I found that interesting, but let me just give you a snapshot of that. I'll give you the link to this as well down below. It's hosted on the NAICS website. So now that we went through that, I'm gonna actually go through it deeper. Let's go through some basics. Do's and don'ts of picking a business name, right? Don't use state names, don't use historical figures, don't use public figures, don't use trademark terms. So you can just go to justia.com and search in their trademark library to see if it's a trademark term. You're gonna get yourself into trouble if you do this. And it's gonna be way harder than it needs to be if you're not paying attention, right? Not using state names, historical figures, public figures, that should all be kind of obvious, right? Make sure that it's easy to spell if it's a public-facing name that you're gonna use so that you've got a domain associated with it. And so let's say you're rattling off the domain to somebody. Do you wanna be saying like Mississippi or something that's really, really hard to spell? Sorry guys, but Mississippi, I am constantly forgetting how to spell, right? Or Massachusetts, or like something like that is hard to spell. Or if we're trying to like be slick and creative and do a spin on words, so it's something that is a normal word, but we've shortened it. Like we've taken, for example, the word categories, but we put a Z in it, or we took a couple letters out to make it, again, slick or creative. That might be hard to convey or hard to like shout out if I'm in an elevator and I'm just trying to pitch somebody really quick my domain name, and maybe I don't have a business card on me. That's what I'm thinking of when I'm picking a business name as well, right? Make sure that the code isn't considered high risk. We'll go over that in just a second. For example, real estate investing-based businesses are considered high risk. Check for trademark, already covered that. Yeah, obviously you wanna make sure that it's not a word that's viewed as prejudiced, like across the boards. I know everyone's super sensitive right now, but trust me, that'll go away. We'll come back down to normal. Everyone will relax at some point, but just make sure that out of the gates, on a good day, it's not considered prejudiced, racist, etc. Right? We just don't want to deal with that. If you're gonna get the trademark first before you set up the LLC. Just get that done in those order of events, right? Okay, so now let's talk about business categorization, all of that. There's actually two code bases. There's the NAICS and there's the SIC code base. The SIC code base was created by the Securities and Exchange Commission, but it's not as often used, even though it's still referenced, and it looks like they're trying to phase that out. So I would almost say don't worry about it, but you should at least be familiar. So you can dig into that. And then the thing you gotta keep in mind is that lenders, banks, insurance companies, business credit reporting agencies, they'll use those two business classification systems to see if your business is high risk, a high risk industry. And just keep that in mind. Like some of these are restricted, meaning that they're a no-fly zone. They're a no-go right out of the gates and it's an instant denial. But some of these, they will lead to more stringent underwriting process, or maybe you'll get asked more questions, or you'll have to show proof of income, things like that, right? And these have all been reported back to us. Like real estate investing, for example, that's something that you probably have to show more paperwork, might actually have to show documentation and a couple years bank statements or something like that above and beyond, right? Whereas in a normal risk category, you might not have to show that. Be familiar with that, because when we're talking about these credit plays and no docs up to 50K and this and that, well, it might be docs for you if your category is considered high risk. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so here's a quick look at all the restricted, and it's everything that you would expect: weapons, bail bonds, check services, gambling, adult, where's adult entertainment? It's down here in high risk. Yeah, I think it's restricted. Probably need to update that. Gaming, gambling, anything crypto related is gonna be in there. Political campaigns, candidates, or committees. I thought that was interesting. Pawn shops, public administration, county, state, federal government agencies, X-rated products. Yeah, okay. All right, so high risk. Here's the two sections there, which essentially I'm just taking what was in the PDF and then adding to it because there's some stuff that's missing in there. Agriculture or forest products, auto, courier services, computer and software related services, which sucks. Dry cleaners, entertainment, general contractors, gas stations, convenience stores, healthcare, special trade contractors, hotels, motels, anything else that's in reference to investing of any kind. Like I said, crypto is borderline restricted. Some will accept it, but as you've heard, like we've even seen now, if you're trying to buy crypto through a credit card, you can get your credit card shut down, you can get your bank account shut down. I remember hearing horror stories with Chase about a year back. So now they're coming around to it, but it's still not considered like super legit. And that's from like just buying it standpoint. So now trying to set up a business in that niche, it's still on that high risk, borderline restricted for some type list. And that's the other thing that's like, it's so tough, right? Because some of the restricted stuff isn't restricted everywhere, but it's restricted enough to where it's like some banks just aren't gonna wanna touch it. Whereas high risk isn't the same. It's not considered like that, right? Jewelry, limousine services, long distance or over the road trucking. So trucking based companies, which I know is kind of a popular thing, those are considered high risk. So just keep that in mind. That being said, I know somebody that has a trucking company or projected revenue of 150,000, which is about standard for, a trucking company. They went out and got a $31,000 Chase card, To each their own, right? Mobile or manufactured home sales, phone sales, direct selling establishment, real estate investors, yep. So I think the general real estate code is 531-390. And so I think this fits under that, under the other, but correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. And again, you can go look this stuff up for yourself on the database. Real estate agents, brokers, real estate developers, land subdevelopers, restaurants, drinking establishments, software, programming, taxi cabs, travel agencies. I have a software-based company and I can tell you it's not really an issue. So again, even though it's on the high risk list, it's not like I'm getting asked more questions or getting, instantaneous denials because of that, right? So just keep that in mind. It's not 100%, it's just kind of more gray area. Let's talk about the highest funded business categories. So this is gonna be essentially part 2 of the NAICS codes video that we did earlier. We read the feedback, we read a lot of the comments saying, hey, it seems like you've got a lot of the higher risk and straight out banned categories covered. Let's hear more of the low risk, or in this case, what are the categories that are historically highest funded? Okay, so let's talk about that in this video. I guarantee you're gonna walk away with something that will help you better pick your category in terms of your classification codes. So anyways, let's dive into it. All right, so we're gonna kind of do some searching around together because I just wanna make sure that everyone has a proper understanding of how the codes work, subcodes, how many codes you can have, et cetera, et cetera. So first off, let's post up a quick screenshot of the last list that we shared, which are considered low risk. So let's post that up now. There you go. And I've got quite a bit to add to that, but let's go through something here. So first thing I wanted to show you is how the subcategories work. So if I go to 4551, which is grocery and convenience retailers, that is a low risk category. So I'm gonna give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more right here. Let's go ahead and post them on the screen. So we got grocery and convenience retailers, business support services, waste collection, colleges, universities, professional schools, educational support services. Obviously, these are gonna be easy. Now, have you noticed I searched 4451 and here are the subcategories. So 103132. So vending machine operators, here's yours right here. Now, if I click through to this, by the way, I will see the revenue that the top businesses in this category are making. Check this out. I don't know if you guys have really, poked around on the website here. It's just naics.com/search. You get all kinds of goods. So check this out. We've got additional codes here and how that breaks down. I even think there's gonna be references to SIC codes on some of these, even though that's apparently gonna get phased out, but check this out. We have the top businesses by annual sales for vending. So I can just click through to this. Let's just click through one real quick, right? So I can go in and get all kinds of information. Why do I need to know this? Well, when we're picking a category or trying to launch a new side hustle, we need to know a range of what revenue expectations to have so that we can use projected income properly on our applications. Understand, if I use the wrong projected income on an application, I might be denied. Okay, next, I was doing some digging and I found that the US Treasury actually puts out a top 25 list. Now, I found it through this, which is an old report from 2014 of top NAICS codes. And we see here, we've got different departments of the US Treasury that has supposedly different lists of major codes. So check this out. Here are codes that get funding from these different departments. And they should be different in each one. Yeah, we got general warehousing and storage. Okay, so, because I'm gonna show you something in a second, which I don't know if it's just not refreshing or what, but anyways, so check this out. I don't know if they've got newer reports. I couldn't find it. I actually tried digging around on the link. I'll give you the link to both of these in case you wanna dig around and find out for yourself. I don't know if there's been a huge amount of changes. With some of this, you can assume it hasn't, general warehousing and storage, come on, that hasn't probably changed. Offices of lawyers, all of the professional, scientific, and technical services, office administrative services, right? So again, this hopefully will get you thinking of great codes to use, right? But check this out. I'll give you this link as well. Top 25 NAICS codes, and it breaks down by which bureau. What's weird is that I'm refreshing this and all the codes in the departments are staying the same. So I don't know if this page is just messed up, but the other day when I was looking at this, I could have sworn that these were different codes per page, which would have been upwards of 150 codes because there's 6 different sub-departments. But let's see here, I'm refreshing it and it's the same one. So I don't know, so you either get 25 and you can actually change this, you can get 50. That all might be the same or they might be different per department. All right, Jay from the future here, and I realized that one thing needed more context, so let me show you this really quick. On this page, where I share with you the top 25 NAICS codes, if you just click on these, check this out. Takes you to a whole nother page. And then it actually gives, what's crazy about this is it gives reference numbers, it tells you again the codes, tells you the total amount that was funded and when the contracts were awarded. Because remember, this is the highest funded categories based on Treasury departments, essentially. And each one of these, we can click into and get more data, more details. Look at how far back this goes. So if we come here, we can change the year. At first I thought you could like go back in time, but it looks like you can go forward. So I assume that'd work off of projections in terms of what they're looking to allocate and spend. But the point is that you can click in and get the sub NAICS code and as well as a bunch of other information. So I just figured I'd note that for you. Okay, now back to the video. Again, this should help you with selecting and finding out high funded categories. So if it's high funded in the US Treasury Department, it's gonna be high funded across the boards. It's gonna be relatively safe from a bank standpoint because when the bank is looking at a business with this code on it, what they're used to seeing is companies that work with the government. So again, we're aligning ourselves with the winning team. That's all this is, right? So anyways, here's another resource for you, at least 25, but if this thing works again, upwards of 150 that are highly funded. Next, I wanna give you a short list of categories that are historically high funded, okay? So we've got under information and technology, custom computer programming services, computer systems design services, data processing, hosting, and related services. Interesting, hosting. Healthcare and biotechnology, offices of physicians, home healthcare services, and biological product except diagnostic, manufacturing. So there's those 6 on the screen right now. Okay, what are we thinking? Is this good? Is this better than the last video where we only brought up, I think, like a dozen? Now we got all kinds that we brought up. Is this good, or do you want more? No, I think we can do more, so let's do more. All right, so check this out. Crunchbase actually, they put out reports from time to time. Here's that page. We'll give you this link. They do research reports, and they did this opportunity index report. Now, this was back in 2020, but I'm gonna show you this one and another one in just a second. Just check this out. If we go to the report itself, what does it give us? It gives us, hey, US industry dollar volume in April 2020. 6 industries that have the highest growth potential in their eyes. And they're calculating this from all the VC data that they gather. So what do we got? We got med biotech, payments. So that's anything, crypto, payments. We got the FedNow coin that just released recently. So anything to do with money, I would assume kind of falls into this category. Cybersecurity, which we've been telling you is huge, right? Telehealth, remote meeting collaboration, of course, and ed tech. Okay, so there's 6 categories right there that from a funding standpoint are great to look into. And here is another report that they did, the rise of global cybersecurity, venture funding, which we've got some people in the community that are into cybersecurity, and it seems to be a pretty lucrative business. So here is some insights right here. Despite the global pandemic, 2020 was a record year for cybersecurity investments with over 7.8 billion invested globally into that industry. Investment in cybersecurity companies has increased more than 9-fold since 2011. And we see week after week, there's hacks and data being, published and data being stolen. So cybersecurity is only going to get more and more important, right? As technology is growing, quantum computing risks are now on the table, right? So these are all things that are getting a ton of funding, okay? In 2021, over 3.7 billion in cybersecurity investments have been recorded globally so far. Crazy, right? What do you think about that? No? We want more? All right. We'll do more. How about historical data of over 500,000 companies going back to October 2009? So from October 2009 to September 30th, 2019, looking at historically the categories that get the most funding from the SBA. Ooh, sounds juicy, doesn't it? All right, let's dive in. So SBA 7A financing is one of the most common ways for a small business to access capital for growth, business expansion, etc. So what are we looking at here? Over the last decade, more than 545,000 borrowers have benefited from over 200 billion in approval loans through the SBA. Approximately 50% of the total dollar volume can be attributed to the top 40 industries during this period. What are those 40 industries? Well, we got them right here. Look at this, baby. All right, there you go. So I'll give you this link as well, but let's just scroll that back up. There we go. Give you a second to check that out. Yes, and it's things that we would expect. Full service restaurants, limited service restaurants, offices of dentists, general freight, trucking. Trucking is a very popular category. I'm constantly hearing people wanting to get into trucking. Hotels and motels, fitness and recreational sports, offices of physicians, general automotive repair, interesting. Landscaping services. So again, we're talking like super small niche stuff that you could start in the back of your truck all the way on up to, I want to spend millions of dollars doing my build out and opening an office, right? So there's something for everyone in terms of popular categories to choose and select for your next business, right? All right, we'll scroll a little slower here. So there's 40. I don't even know how many we've covered now. Look at everything we've covered and a lot of it is based on historical data. So we're not guessing here. We're seeing based on hundreds of thousands of records, the most popular, categories to select. Okay, cool. So I think that's enough of that. Let's now wrap up with a couple things that you're gonna wanna note here. Picking a code can affect the funding that you get, okay? So here's some general, boundaries to use, right? Don't select an industry that is consistently in the spotlight of regulation. Or, one day they could pass a bill that completely destroys that industry or would destroy it in terms of a funding standpoint. Obvious ones that come to my mind is marijuana, firearms is constantly under the spotlight, even though alcohol is a higher funded business, right? Like we see it right here, number 17, beer, wine, and liquor stores. I'm not saying don't do it, I'm just saying understand what you're getting yourself into. Some industries are known for inconsistent revenue, which can be another reason why some lenders may shy away from certain codes, right? So if you have a seasonal business, whether it's e-commerce or local, right? Or if they know for a fact that you're gonna have slumps throughout the year, that's pinpointed to your niche or your market or your NAICS code, they're gonna know that. The bank's gonna know that, and that might affect your lending, right? There's some industries where innovation happens so fast that certain businesses will likely be replaced soon. Based on the NAICS code that you select, it reveals the industry that you're in. And again, remember, the lenders can see that. And so based on that, based on the information that they have, again, it might affect your lending abilities, right? Lastly, some industries are oversaturated and not every business is successful. So if you're going into a super saturated market, understand that that could affect your funding abilities, right? There's a ton of people already doing this. Maybe they're looking at census data if you're talking to a credit union. I don't know how hyper-focused or how deep they dig down with, what they're looking at your code and et cetera, from an underwriting standpoint, but just understand that all those things could be on the table. All those things could be looked at. So if you're in an oversaturated market or you're the 50th landscaper in your small city, I don't know, it might not be a good look, right? So anyways, two final common questions that we get asked is, can I change my NAICS code if I screwed up or for some other reason I need to change it? Yes, you can. You just need to reach out to whoever, the organization, the bureau that misclassified you. So understand that if I don't select a code, a lot of times they'll just auto-assign me a code, right? Or sometimes I've even seen to where they think that they're doing you a favor, right? When I'm sitting down at the bank and they're trying to pick me out a different code and category than what I actually am. So you just gotta be mindful of this. You can look up your business at Dun & Bradstreet, make sure it's got the proper classification and the proper NAICS code. If not, you can change it. Next common question, can I get two codes? Can I have more than one code is the question. Some variation of that. Yes and no. You can only have one primary, but you can have secondary codes if your business does multiple things. So understand you can have more than one code, yes, but the primary code that defines the whole business, you can only have one. Okay, hopefully you enjoyed that training and it made it crystal clear. You at least have direction on what you want to do with your NAICS codes. You've obviously got the sites and the resources on where to look ad nauseum. Okay, so the next big topic that we need to talk about, now that we got that out of the way, is we need to talk about vendor accounts. These are called Net 30 accounts. These are tier 1 accounts, people even call them. They're essentially buy now, pay later for the business. So I can establish a relationship with these vendors and they will let me get goods now sent off to me and I don't have to pay for 15, 30, 45, 60, or 90 days. Now, it used to be different, like 5 years ago. There was way more, like there was net 15s, net 90s. I've seen all kinds of wild stuff going on. It's kind of changed. I would think the down the middle average is like a net 30 now, but there's a huge myth that we need to dispel right here, right now, before we even dive into this. I'm still seeing this perpetuated all over the internet in 2023, 2024, and I don't know why. And it is that there's this thought process that if I go out and get 2, 4, 6 net 30 vendor accounts, that will give me an 80 Paydex score, and that's all I need to get credit funding. Okay, first part's true. That's why I think people get lost in this. Second part's not true. So the first part, I can go out and sometimes it's just 2 or 3 that I need, sometimes more, upwards of 6 vendor accounts or small, easy, quick, cheap accounts. And yes, it'll get me a 80 Paydex or higher. That doesn't mean I'm gonna go and get credit funding right now. That doesn't mean the banks are just gonna say, oh, you got an 80 Paydex, come on in, bud, how much would you like? No, it doesn't work like that. So just because it does provide the Paydex score, people then think, oh, that means that like I can just go to Chase now and they'll give me a 50K, business credit card. No, not at all, not at all. How it actually works is for the first 2 to 3 years of your LLC or business entity is they're going to be heavily relying on your personal credit. I know, it sucks. And so that's why we kind of break things out into phases like we do, because we've got to rebuild credit. Then we have to build and expand on our personal credit to then get in position to pivot into business credit. Okay, they are looking at your personal credit for the most part. Now, if you come out of the gates and that first year you're crushing it and you've got your filing taxes and you've got good revenue and all of that, and you got high stated personal income, you're gonna be better off. Most businesses are not like that. You know, most businesses, it's gonna take them a couple years to actually get off the ground. So as a new business with an 80 paydex or no paydex, they're gonna be relying on your personal credit. So I just wanted to make sure that that was crystal clear. So it's somewhere between 2 to, 4 years, let's just call it, okay? And in that time frame, they're mostly gonna be leveraging consumer, okay? So the big takeaway from that is that you really wanna focus on net 30s that you actually need. Vendor accounts that we actually need. Like if you actually are doing a lot of business, then get Quill, get a Staples account. You know, if you actually are doing manufacturing and you need equipment, then look at those net 30s. In this video, what we're about to cover, there is a ton of net 30s. I remember this video took me so long to put together because the list, and then we wanted to double check it and make sure that, you know, everything was up to date. Are they reporting to the bureaus properly, et cetera, which that's the last point that I wanted to make is that unless we're making videos every single week, this stuff changes so quickly, especially with net 30 vendor accounts. For some reason, they're always running into problems with what bureaus that they're reporting to, et cetera. So the video that you're about to watch was shot in the middle of 2023. I'd say 90% of the data is still accurate, but some of what bureau do they report to? You're gonna wanna double check this. Regardless of what video you watch, unfortunately, you just can't take it as like, oh, this is still completely true. Maybe within the first couple days, first couple weeks, but months and months later, there might have been changes, right? Like there's been changes with Divvy. They got bought out by Bill and they kind of rearranged what they're focusing on. NAV as well. NAV has made some changes with what credit bureaus they're giving you access to because they're trying to streamline and make it more focused towards business. So there are like little minor changes and then there's bigger changes, which sometimes they get rejected from reporting to certain bureaus or they make changes there. Just call them, email them. It's very easy. It's not scary. And just double check and make sure before you get started. But without further ado, let's dive into net 30s. 25 net 30 vendor accounts and business credit builders. I got the entire list. I want to share it with you. Let's dive in. We got a lot of net 30 accounts. We've been working on this for way too long. This took me to get together for 2023. So without further ado, let's dive right in. All right, net 30 accounts, why they matter, what they are, and probably why you want them. Well, essentially what they are is they give you terms on when you have to pay. So you can pay between 25 to 60 days, unusual. Usually you get a net 30 or net 60, but one of these on the list is actually a net 25. And all that allows you to do is stretch your cash flow. You can save more money. You can place these orders in between when you're gonna get payouts from clients. Typical businesses run with downtimes of cash flow. So net 30s are hugely beneficial with vendor accounts because this is stuff that you usually have to order on a regular basis. And so having to, come out of pocket with that money or put on a credit card, et cetera, is usually not what we want to do, right? We want to be able to have terms on that so that we can stretch our money, right? And it puts us into a great position with building credit. Understand that net 30 accounts, vendor accounts, they show up differently on the business credit profile. They do not show up as an active bank trade line. They show up as essentially a vendor account. I actually can't remember the name of it. If I do remember, I'll insert it on the screen. There's a lot of options here. I've got 25 that I'm gonna share with you here. I've got more, but this page is ridiculously long as it is. So first thing I wanna touch on is credit builders. Now these are specifically for building up business credit. And the only reason why I mentioned them is because they kind of act like a net 30 account. Like the Divvy account kind of acts like that because it automatically debits the money out of your account 48 hours or so after you've made the purchases. And the credit builder accounts and the secured account, operate similar, right? So anyways, there's 3 options right there for you. Divvy, Tilful offers a credit builder, which you pay $20 to $50 a month. We've covered this in a dedicated video, and a secured credit card, minimum deposit of $500. All those are reporting to the bureaus. Which ones? It depends on which product you're getting. Next, credit monitoring. Now, this is an easy place to slide in another trade line because we need to be monitoring our business credit. It is different than consumer credit, I will tell you that. There's a whole lot more to pay attention to, and getting an idea of your profile is great because then you kind of know where you're at in terms of the strength of the profile to get business credit funding. So you got 3 options there, but there's actually like 3 or 4 others. First one right off the gate is Tilful. They offer credit monitoring, and Tilful actually has its own credit score model. Okay, so you can read more about that on our, we have a dedicated page breaking down all 13 business credit score models. Okay. Nav is the next one. Nav is probably going to be your best bet. I say that time and time again, and the reason why is because with their business booster plans, it actually reports as an open trade line, and it gives you access to just about every single credit score. Look at this. You get IntelliScore Plus version 2, Paydex, Equifax, Business Delinquency Score, FICO, SBSS, Personal, Experian, and TransUnion Vantage 3.0. You get access to a lot, okay? And this reports to DNB, Experian, and Equifax. So I think it starts at $49 a month, gives you access to just about all your scores. It's got a matching engine in it. It's got ID theft protection. It's easy to get. It's worth it. And then lastly is Dun & Bradstreet credit monitoring, which this one's kind of a weird one. If you want to get like super in depth with your credit profile, compare it to other competitors in your same niche or category based on your NAICS code or your NIC code, or you want to just see how you match up against the rest of the competitors in your industry, then that sort of data is what you start to get with the Dun & Brad credit monitoring. Now, the only thing that's weird about it is that they use the word potentially a million times. So they don't tell you that it's going to report and help your score. They just throw around the word potentially. So that's kind of changed over the last couple of years. I don't know if they got themselves into trouble or what. This is way more money as well. This starts at $149, and then they also offer $199 per month. And they only report to Dun & Brad, and it can take time for it to show up, okay? So that's the third option. Fourth and fifth, go straight to Experian. I believe it's $100 or $150 per report that you pull. I don't remember what the yearly is, and Equifax is similar. So you could go straight to them, or just go to Nav for $49 a month. You see what I'm saying? All right. Office supplies, first big category. We got a lot of players in this space. Obviously you got Quill. They're probably one of the oldest, and it seems like they go through phases, right? And the two phases are kind of outlined here. So first thing that tends to happen is if you add $100 pre-tax of supplies in your cart, everything will go smooth, and you'll see that there's a net term option or a pay by invoice option right there in checkout. Second option that might happen is it doesn't go perfect. And so you don't see that option at checkout, and then you'll have to make purchases over 2 to 3 months, which will end up being 2 to 3 orders, and then it could take another 90 to 120 days before they report any of the history to Dun & Brad, and they're going to take the average of your purchases to establish your initial credit limit, right? That would be worst case scenario. It seems that whenever there's an influx in YouTube videos and stuff like this one that get released, then the reps kind of change their tune on the phone. I don't know. We've got probably 5 or 6 different examples in the community, and they went one or the other way. So some people had no problem at all. Some people had all kinds of issues. So again, your results will vary. Minimum order is $100 on that first order, regardless if you get terms or not. 0 annual fee, reports to Dun & Brad, Experian, and they're supposed to be adding Equifax Business. Next is Summa. Let's start moving a little quicker. We give you the link to all the Net 30 applications as well. Summa is just, I guess, another option out there. They've got a $75 annual fee, reports full activity on the last business day of the month. They provide trade references too if you need them. What's weird about them is they share an address with Strategic Network Solutions, which is just kind of like a starter trade line, and Ohana Office products. They not only share the same address, but their FAQ pages are identical. So that's kind of weird to me. And then I reached out to all these companies to get this fresh data for 2023. And they're the only ones that said, hey, call us. And they wanted me to call the director of finance, which I didn't feel like doing. So they either report to Dun & Brad and Equifax, or Experian Equifax, and after 6 months, Dun & Bradstreet. Those are the 2 data sets that I've got, which they're both different. I know, weird. Crown is next. Minimum order is $30, including shipping, $99 annual fee. Net 30 business accounts are reported on the 15th of the month for the month prior. Other notes, pay the invoice, payment 2 to 3 days prior to the invoice due date for the month of the invoice to be reported. Credit bureau reporting doesn't start till after the 3rd consecutive order. Reports to Dun & Brad, Equifax Small Business, Credit Safe, SBFE, LexisNexis, NACM, and Sonia. Okay, lastly is Office Garner. You're starting to kind of see they're all the same. So let's just zip through this one. Minimum order, $45, 0 annual fee. So again, that's all you're really weighing out is who it reports to, what the annual fees are, what the minimum orders are, how much supplies they got on the site, how much of a pain in the butt, how much is shipping, all that stuff, right? And all of them kind of require the same thing. US-based business, no derogatory marks on the business report, things like that, right? So applications usually take 24 hours, and that's who they report to. You see right there. Okay, next, business apparel. This is a great category, I think, because a lot of what you need to get started up is polo shirts or just regular t-shirts for casual Friday or weekends or something like that, right? We need these sorts of things. Stationery, these are all requirements for the business, especially if you're gonna have a physical location. Even if you're not, I would argue that these are still good things to have. So CEO Creative, They've got office supplies, branded apparel, and websites. They got like stationery. 0 minimum order, 0 annual fee, reports to Equifax and credit safe. Next is Shirtsy. This is a print-on-demand solution. Minimum order is $30, including shipping, $99 annual fee to keep the Net30 open. And you see who they report to. Business T-shirt Club. This is a membership-based custom apparel printing, a solution going a little bit above and beyond the other two. $69 annual fee. Orders from members require a 50% deposit. $100 minimum order. You see who they report to right there. Hold it there. Next, business plans and marketing. With some credit funding options, you have to show a business plan, especially if you are a startup company. So these could be valuable to you. And in marketing, obviously, we need to figure out some sort of outbound, inbound marketing strategy to bring people in to sell and make money, right? Wise Business Plan, they offer business plans, pitch decks, etc. $99 annual fee, $164 required spend to maintain the Net30, and you'll be given an actual credit limit with this one. Reports to Credit Safe, Experian Business, and Equifax Business. Creative Analytics DC Digital Marketing is next. And like many of the Net30 options, you see, has to be established for 30 days, must have a Dun & Brad number, must have an EIN, must be a United States-based business, no derogatory mark on the company, etc., right? Some of these go above and beyond that. Some of them, they just got a basic set of guidelines. Okay, 3 credit programs. The monthly is the most popular according to their own website. $0 annual fee, and it's $49 to $149 per month. Business credit on autopilot program, and then it reports trade line limits up to $12,000. Lastly, we've got NamiNot. I believe that's how you pronounce it. The Y is an I, maybe. This is a digital marketing agency that provides online marketing solutions. So 0 annual fee. Reported limit up to $10,000. You can get denied with this, and they only report to Dun & Brad. Business supplies and manufacturing next. Look, we got Uline, HD Supply, Grainger, and Platt. We're just gonna kind of skip over those. I'm gonna hold them on there. You can check out the site if you like. And then we've got even more here. This is where we got True Starter Accounts, which is monopolize your marketplace. They've been around for a really long time. Strategic Network Solutions as well. So you got those 2 options. Moose Creek Traders, this was a newer one to me. They're a liquidation type store for goods. It definitely seems to be a little bit different than what you see on the consumer side, which on the consumer side seems to be a little bit, I don't know, a little more scammy looking. This wasn't that bad. Okay, JJ Gold is a makeup supplier, so that's another option that you've got. Linear Supplies, that's household goods. Fair, that's home decor, but just watch out because when we got email back from them, they told me that they don't report data because they actually have a bunch of independent vendors. So I think maybe they run into issues there with their privacy policy or something like that to where they actually can't report it. I don't know if anything actually gets reported to the business bureau, so that's almost worthless unless you literally need the stuff. And then Crate, I think that's how you pronounce this last one. That's home goods, clothing, and a bunch of other stuff. 60-day terms on that. You can get denied, and the trade line limits cap out at 2,500 euros. So there you go, 25 Net30 vendor accounts. Last year's video, we only had 13. So every year we're getting bigger and better. Wow, that was a lot of Net30 accounts. Like I said, I'm reminded now of just how long that took to put that together. But we can't talk about Net30s and vendor accounts without, in the same breath, talking about fleet gas cards. So fleet gas cards are another great option. Regardless if you're doing a ton of driving or not, it's not only the trade line itself that is a positive to have reporting for your business, but sometimes there are reward structures set up, cash back, et cetera, et cetera. And so these things are worthwhile to do. And the thing that I'll say is that a lot of these are very easy to get, meaning you barely got it done, so you got nothing really reporting to it, and we're still able to go and get these fleet gas cards with $5,000 to $10,000 limits on them. So this is a topic that definitely I see a lot of people skipping out on, but they shouldn't. So anyways, we've got, I don't even know, 10 plus fleet cards that I'm gonna cover with you. All the big players, all the stuff that you need to know. Let's dive into that now. Fleet gas cards. I got 9 fleet gas card options for you, plus 1 service-based option. These range from Net30 to Net25. So let's go ahead and dive into it. These range from Net25 to Net30. I think you're gonna find something in here that you like. Let's go ahead and dive into it. All right, so to go along with the the vendor accounts and the other Net30 madness that we got, obviously you're gonna have gas cards that fit into this slot as well. Now, the beauty and the benefit to gas cards or fleet cards, as they're often called, is that for the most part, you can have a very new business with no established credit. Sometimes you don't even need a Dun & Bradstreet number. So these can be fresh LLCs, meaning like we just got the EIN and now we're going and applying for some of these cards. I'm gonna tell you which ones, obviously, but there's a range of options. There's only a few big players that actually back these. WEX is a big one, and so is Concerto. So those are a couple of the bigger players on the block, and obviously we've got some more traditional banks that back these as well. Let's go through it. As I stated, a lot of these don't require Paydex. You don't have to PG for these. You can have a 30-day-old or, newer business, like right out of the gates, you can go and get these things, right? So first off, if you're gonna deal with a WEX-backed card, that's WEX, some things to note. They're gonna soft pull Experian or Experian and TransUnion. Watch out for the fees that they've got on the gas cards. They've got things like monthly fees, setup fees, paper statement fees. If you want to get your paper statements, it costs $10, things like that, right? And then they report to Dun & Brad and Experian Business. So let's start at the top. We got Shell and Gulf. We'll start with these two. They're both issued by WEX, and I've gotten both of these cards before. So can have a brand new LLC, no history, no profits on the Shell, no docs, soft pull Experian, or Experian and TransUnion, as I just said. Small business, Shell Fleet Card has no fees, but they do have a few other cards, and I believe there's fees. Next, let's jump into Golf. It can be a brand new LLC, just like with Shell. No docs, same soft pull, issued by WEX. They got some great options too. Next, we have Fuelman, which is a newer player from my understanding of it. So we've got some data on this. They've got 3 different business fleet programs, $25 up to $99. So this is for basic, pro, and enterprise different levels. We just had somebody go through and got $15K when the LLC was only 3 months old with no personal guarantor, and this is issued by Fleet Core. That's Fleet COR. Next, BP, this is another big player. They hard pull Experian. This is issued by Regions Bank, which is again a little bit different, and they might make you PG on this one. If you're in an area with a ton of BPs, or like this is your gas station of choice, that's the one you're gonna wanna look at. Next is A2B. This is a fintech. This is a newer solution. This tends to get more airtime than other gas cards and fleet cards. I'm not really sure why. They offer a charge card and a prepaid card. The charge card is a $0 setup fee and $3 per active card per month. The prepaid card costs $25 setup fee and then $3 per active card per month. They're gonna soft pull Experian on this. Gotta link up your business checking with Plaid, and it's issued by Celtic Bank. So Celtic Bank issues a lot of cards and it backs a lot of different institutions. You can kind of lean on your previous experience with A2B to give you an idea of how to navigate that. Next is Conoco or Conoco, depending on where you're from and if you want to mess with your friends or not from the out west, right? So this is a great card. This is another one that I got before, 0 annual fee. Or any card fees at all. PG might be required though. Lastly, a data point, got approved for 4K, took 2 weeks for approval, so best to get in now. If you have no cars, put in at least 1 vehicle. This is true for any of these applications. Like, don't go saying you got 10 cars if you only got 1. And if you're trying to just use this for yourself and you're a solopreneur and you're kind of just getting started with your LLC or your entity, again, they're okay with you just saying one car in the fleet, right? All right, next is Coast Pay Fleet Card. This reports to the SBFE. There is no PG. They'll soft pull your consumer credit. Not sure which bureaus. If you know, comment below, let us know. You're issued a credit limit, but you cannot carry a balance. After 3 months, you can request a credit limit increase. The charge is $2 per active user per month, and this one is also issued by Celtic Bank. So again, we can lean on that from previous experiences. Next is Circle K. They're pretty much everywhere now, but they used to just be out west. I think this is a great gas station actually. And so they have over 6,000 locations nationwide, no monthly fees on the fleet cards. Circle K Universal Fleet Card has a $2 card fee per month per card and a $40 enrollment. So again, that is the Universal Fleet Card, which is usually for somebody who actually has a fleet. So they've got, 10 plus vehicles is considered a fleet. With a lot of these, sometimes it's 20 or more. And this is also issued by WEX, W-E-X. Next and lastly is the Tire and Service Center. So this is another one that goes hand in hand. If you've actually got a fleet, all of this that we've talked about so far is probably insanely valuable to you. But even if you don't, and you just got a couple vehicles in rotation, then this is still up your alley. Okay, they offer 2 types of financing. One is a net 25 and the other one is called the Easy Pay Finance. So with the Easy Pay Finance, it has a different underwriting process than a net 25 offer. Weird, right? So at first I thought I was like seeing the same offer, but on different pages of the site, or maybe that people that were giving me intel were mixing it up. No, it's 2 separate offers, 2 separate underwriters. So again, your results may vary with how well you do with each one. They accept businesses with no credit. If you pay off your balance in 90 days, you get full interest rebate. If you pay off your balance within 90 days, all the interest charges you get back as a rebate. That's cool. Okay, it's issued by Transportation Alliance Bank, or TAB, and the approvals range from $500 to $5,000. That's where they cap out at. Minimum amount that you can get approved for is $350. That's if you've got apparently like the worst credit score or profile that they're looking at, right? And in the net 25 offer, let's quickly cover that. No minimum order. They will request bank reference and a credit reference. They want to see Paydex 80 or higher for approval. Underwriting is done by TBC Retail Group Inc., and they report to Dun & Brad. All right, here we are. Finally, let's talk about business credit funding. Where do we start? Okay, because I see Now it's taken so long, I see a lot of people getting overly excited and they go for the wrong cards. So what I want to share with you is, as a beginner business, as a brand new business, where should we be starting out to go and get credit cards? Now, hopefully you haven't, shot the whole wad with going out and getting too many net 30 vendor accounts and wasted a bunch of time there, et cetera, to where now we can actually put our focus where we need to put it, which is let's get big bank business credit funding. Let's dive into that video now. What are the 3 best credit cards you could get as a beginner or startup business? That's what we're going to explore in this video. Let's dive into it. All right, welcome back, my friends, to the channel. So I thought what would be fun is to ask the community what are the best or their favorite go-to startup or beginning business credit cards, right? So we're assuming that the business is making no profit. If it was making profit, there's a whole, other path you could go down. But anyways, we got some feedback and I gotta say, I like this list, so I wanted to share it with you. So let's start at the top. Before thinking about business credit, understand something, that for your first 1 to 3, maybe even 5 years running the business, creditors will mostly be looking at your personal credit. You'll have to sign on a dotted line. They're most likely going to ask for your full social security number, which means that you're essentially a PG or personal guarantor for, these business credit cards, lines of credit, etc. Now, as soon as the business starts making money, and we've got bank accounts that are showing this, right? Stripe accounts, PayPals, whatever, that have thousands of dollars coming in every single month as revenue. Then we've got other options that we can start to use fintechs. We can use even some of like NBC, things like that will allow you to link up your bank account to kind of prove or provide that the business is making money. Obviously, if it's years down the road of the business, we've now filed tax returns, and so we've got different options there. SBA becomes an option, Key Bank, things like that, 2 years plus, right? But anyways, let's go all the way back now to the beginning and start to talk about the startup, right? This brand new business that you want to set up. And this is something that I think a lot of people miss because we get so wrapped up into rebuilding a personal credit that by the time it's time to think about business, I notice a lot of people skip over this, or they've kind of forgotten about it, or maybe they're still thinking in their mind they don't qualify for it. But let's dive into it. So what are these 3 cards? These 3 cards I think are a solid baseline. That's why I like this. They're a solid reward structure, they're great ecosystems, and like I said, they're a great foundation or baseline that will allow you to actually go out, pull money off of these, use these for business expenses. You'll get good rewards. You'll start to build up in these ecosystems, which will allow you to then grow and expand later, which we'll talk about at the end. All right, so let's talk about the first one. That is the Chase Inc. Cash Card. That is the business card. Remember, there's several Inc. cards now. And this is 5% on selected business purchases, 2% on gas and restaurants, and unlimited 1% on everything else. Another kicker being that there's no annual fee. Okay, so right now they're running a 0% APR for 12 months, introductory offer. So that is a great card to have, right? Next, or number 2, would be the Chase Inc. Unlimited, 2 Chase cards. And the reason why is because this is unlimited 1.5% on every purchase. And again, there's no annual fee on this card. So those 2 cards together really start to give you a solid, like I said, foundation in terms of reward structures, right? But it gets even better. Let's pull in Amex into the mix, which I think are probably your best 2 cards, 2 ecosystems to build a large amount of your focus or your business efforts in, is the Chase ecosystem and Amex. They work so good together, and that is why you see so many personal finance channels just talking about Chase and American Express every single freaking day, is because they've deserved it, right? They've earned this over the years, right? We've got 2 options here. We could do the Blue Business Plus, or we could do the Blue Business Cash, either one. Right now with the Blue Business Plus or the BBP, they have 2x on eligible purchases up to $50K per year, 1x on all other purchases, no annual fee, and currently they're offering a 0% for 12 months introductory APR as well. Now, if you don't like the X or reward point structure and you want cash back instead, then you'd go with the Blue Business Cash. So that is basically the same thing that I just covered with the BBP, but with cash back. So it's 2% up to $50,000 per year and then 1% unlimited on everything else, right? No annual fee. It has the same introductory offer, 0% for the next 12 months as well. So those are great. Don't expect that to change. We're in Q4 of 2023. Even into Q1 of next year, I don't expect that a lot of the 0% offers and the subs, I don't really expect them to dramatically change that much. Interest rates are gonna stay about the same, so you can expect pretty similar offers going into next year. Now, let's talk about this optional 4th card, because maybe you agree with that list, maybe you like it, maybe you don't, right? Because I hear some of you, and you're saying, what about a targeted card towards purchases that the business might have? So this would be things like an Amazon card. We could even pull in Sam's Club, Costco, if, again, if we're doing like a vending machine business, a Sam's Club business card is, so good for that, right? They even sell vending machines through that. Or if we're doing like home improvement stuff, then we could even talk like Home Depot, Lowe's credit cards, right? We could get into that. They've got some great lines of credit, great credit card options on both of those fronts. And again, that would help you if you're into that line of business. So let's cover some. How many do I have here? I've got 4 here, and hopefully that'll give you a good idea of where you want to go. And then I'm going to even take it a step further beyond that. Okay. So we've got the 3 big boy cards, or the 3 primary cards. Now let's cover this 4th. First is Amazon Prime Business. I think regardless of what business you're running, there is very high odds you're going to be purchasing off of Amazon Business. Okay. So you probably should set up a Prime account, a business Prime account, and then we could look at that card. That is an American Express card. So that is the Amex Amazon Prime Business. And that is 5% cash back or 90-day terms on purchases off Amazon.com. But there's a slew of other rewards and benefits that you're gonna have. You're gonna have exclusive discount offers that they roll out I don't even know how often this is, but I'm often getting email and I'm seeing like special offers just for Business Prime members. So there's stuff like that they roll out throughout the year. You're gonna get early access to stuff. And again, like the terms and perks that they throw in are quite good, okay? So that to me is worth it if you're gonna be purchasing in bulk or could off Amazon. Next, Sam's Club. Sam's Club Business MasterCard. So this card is pretty sweet. It's 5% on eligible gas and EV charging, and then that's up to $6K per year. And then after that, it's 1%. On everything else from Sam's Club, it's 3%. So 3% on Sam's Club purchases and online purchases. That's with the Plus membership, which I think runs you $110 a year. And then it's just 1% for club members, which is the cheaper membership structure, and dining takeout, and then 1% on all other purchases. Solid card, right? Especially if you're gonna be shopping there. Citibank Costco business card. That's another one you could look at if you don't like Sam's Club versus Costco. If you're on the Costco side of things, then this is 4% on eligible gas and EV purchases, totaling $7K per year. And then unlimited 3% on restaurants and selected travel, including Costco travel, which, some of these, it might make sense. Sometimes the prices that they're charging you on the travel portals is bloated, but, looking around nowadays, travel is way more expensive than it's ever been, at least in my lifetime. So, the price of flights, the price of hotels has gone up steadily. 2% on all other purchases from Costco and Costco.com, and then unlimited 1% on all other purchases. Those are 2 killer cards, right? And if that fits into what you're doing, great. So now let's look at Lowe's, the construction, renovation side of things, right? If that's your business, which general contractors, construction, specialty stuff, Lowe's sells a lot of stuff. So that might fit a lot of you out there. So this is 5% on all Lowe's purchases, 2% on the rest of Lowe's purchases, and 2% at selected US restaurants, office supply stores, wireless phone services, and 1% cash back on all others. That's those. That's my optional 4th. Now my optional 5th and 6th, we could start to get into travel-based cards. Travel on 2 fronts, airline side and the hotel side. So what I would just suggest here is if you do move into those cards, which I think now like our lineup would be, 2 Chase cards and an American Express card, and then we've got maybe 1 or 2 catered cards towards our exact business. Now we're looking at, maybe a 5th, 6th, or 7th, which is gonna be travel, the airline side and the hotel side. That's a solid lineup. Like that is all you're gonna need. And then that should be plenty. Like not even forget the travel cards, but those first 3, 4 that I mentioned, that should be plenty to get your business up off the ground, get it to profitability. So then we can start to get some fintech options and, somebody that's going to look at our monthly P&L statements to give us, loans or lines of credit based off of that. Then is where we can start to make a big leap forward and actually start funding this business and growing, right? And expanding. So anyways, back to travel and airlines, right? There's so many different reward structures out there. I would just argue that a lot of people are constantly talking about this on social media, which creates like this FOMO effect of like, oh man, maybe I'm screwing up and maybe it's not Hilton. Maybe I should go over here and it's Marriott, or maybe I should come over here and do this one, or it's IHG, or, maybe I should get into Wyndham or, Barclays, whatever. Just pick one. Pick one airline, pick one hotel, build it out till you hit the max highest status that you possibly can get, because we can always do status matching, which is still very successful to this day, regardless of which one you max out. They see value in that. Other companies see value in that, and they do match statuses. Now, sometimes you gotta call. Sometimes you gotta jump through some hoops. They might not offer it forever. They might just do it this one time. My point is that if you did have to steer away from, like, let's say you wanted Hilton and, American Airlines or Delta or something like that. Those are killer brands, so they're gonna have properties all over the world. They're gonna have airlines all over the world at every major hub. So those are great options to select, and then just max that out. And then after that, if you wanted to go and look at, getting into other ecosystems and building out other statuses, you could. But I would just argue that to get to that first one, because there's going to be so many rewards that we get. We can bring other people, the baggage options that we get at that point, the lounges, and just everything involved in that. It's worth just getting one maxed out. Again, to take a step back, look at our lineup. We've got all of our bases covered. That's how we need to be thinking about business startup. The first couple cards that we get with business credit, we need to be going all the way to the top, looking at the very best, which is Chase, because they are the most sensitive towards new accounts over the last 24 months. Start there, and then we get into American Express, and then we could look at Bank of America or Barclays or something like that, right? But we need to start with the biggest ones first, and then by the time we get down to those, filter down, then we've got a lot of our bases covered with our reward structures and our usage, because we're gonna have high limits on those cards, right? All right, so we've now covered quite a bit of material and content. One of the most important things, and I don't know if maybe we should have started with this, I tend to, carrot and stick, and most people don't want to face a lot of the hard realities and the tough questions around business credit funding. There's a lot of these myths and kind of mystical theories about what business credit funding is and how it's just gonna be this free money and, et cetera, that we're gonna be able to use for our business. And there's some truth to that, but there is a lot of hard questions that need to be asked, right? From the very beginning of how we're gonna structure this thing, in what state, what type of entity, and then, getting into what NAICS code we're gonna use, what type of business, and then how we're gonna use that business credit funding, right? Because especially in the beginning, there isn't a lot of cash flow coming in. So these are all things that we need to take into consideration, right? And I think all too many times that when, we get the 20K, the 50K limit, a lot of people then start to go and make bad decisions. So I saved this for the end. Like I said, I don't know if this is the best place to put it, but this is a conversation I had recently with Revan Group, who's high dollar earner. He's into real estate. He's got multiple businesses that are funded. He's helped family do this. So he's got a lot of experience under his belt. And we talk about getting your personal credit into position before you even get started. And we go through it step by step, setting up the business, where to really go, what his favorite banks are. And we talk about a lot of these myths, right? And it's just a very dynamic, fluid conversation around business credit funding. So I thought this would be a great place to end this. And hopefully you get some big takeaways from this. If you do, comment below. Obviously, if you like this sort of material, then share it with a friend, watch it on TV, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But let's dive into the last part now, the last section. Let's dive in. All right. Here we go. So we are back with Revan Group, and we are going to talk about business credit. So this is one of the OGs in our community, and he's got a ton of experience. My dog's in the background. He's got a ton of experience with getting business credit, right? And he took a very different approach than I think I hear a lot of people talking. A lot of people are still kind of caught up in the wrong things, I feel like. And we've shared a lot of videos on the channel. And so I just wanted to bring this unique perspective and talk through this. So let's dive in. Rev, what's up, man?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. All right. So let's talk business credit, because, man, there's some prevailing things I'm seeing. And I'm thankful that we've now shared in the community and kind of beaten out some of the bad ideas, like the net 30 ideas, the 80 paydex from, a handful of vendor accounts being like some magical ticket into getting, high limit business credit cards, kind of beating some of those ideas out of the community and out of the idea. Out of the credit space to a degree, but there's still some prevailing bad ideas, I think. And so, yeah, let's talk through this. Wherever you want to kind of start off at, and how you go through the process, and let's just kind of chat through it.
Sure. I've seen it a million times in your group, another group that I'm a part of. Like, I get it. Social media is the go-to in this era, millennials in particular, and just people in general, right? When we were younger, myself and plenty of other guys I've seen in your group, these things weren't readily available, right? So the YouTubes and all of this stuff that's so huge now, but there's a lot of misinformation, and I would say disinformation, whether on purpose, clickbait, whatever the term is you want to use right now. I've seen it all. I don't know where it all started. It's too big of a rabbit hole to jump into, but the whole net 30s, the whole get those and build up business credit. At the end of the day, those things will never get you real business funding. There's no banks out there that are going to say, oh, this guy's got 8 net 30 accounts, 5 net 30 accounts, 10 net 30 accounts. Let me give him $50,000 credit card, right? Or let me give him $100,000 in business line of credit. That's not a reality. But those realities from a lot of different YouTube channels that I've seen over the years, I won't name any. It's not really relevant. They're not relevant because they don't watch them. But they promoted these things, right? There are
Yeah.
very few out there, yourself included, that tell the truth, right? Those type of things, those accounts will never get you where you want to go. I think one of the things that people tend to miss also is starting from a point of, okay, you want business credit. How, why, what are you going to do with it, right? But not
Yep.
just that, is what does your profile look like? And I think there was, for a minute there was a disconnect, right? That business credit was somehow its own thing and personal credit was its own thing, but they very much correlate together. And if you don't have a solid personal profile, you are never going to get business credit with a startup company. It's just not going to happen for you. So I always come from, like, with my family that I've helped and friends that I've helped also, is, well, let's start at your personal profile, because the more solid that is, the deeper, thicker profile that is, the bigger the back end for the business will be, whether it's business credit card, business line of credit, business loans, right?
Yeah.
Everybody, I think another thing that's blown up over the last couple years that myself, and I'm pretty sure I know GW is involved in, and the last conversation we talked, Q is involved in, is real estate, right?
Yeah.
Yes, can real estate create generational wealth for you? Of course, but you're not getting those real estate loans if your personal profile on top of your business's profile isn't rock solid. Why would a bank want to loan someone whose profile is, let's say, a 660 with some issues in it, $400,000 business loan, right? Why would they want to do that?
Yeah.
Makes no sense. And so people start from a point where they don't have a profile. And I think this is what trapped a lot of those people, is into believing that somehow vendor accounts will change that. And of course, scrupulous people on the internet that have channels promoting these things, terrible, terrible ideas. And you can cut through all of that red tape if you just have a solid profile. I've always said it in your group. I don't like I like A to B. I do not like A to A1 to A2 to
Yeah.
B1, B2 to get to B.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just stupid.
Exactly.
And the cleanest, the fastest way is in a straight line. And so, from, if your profile solid, you can go straight to B. You don't do all of these things in between, because they're just fool's gold at the end of the day.
Yeah, and especially, if you're going out getting these accounts, and you don't even need them, then what are you doing? You're wasting money, resources, time, et cetera, et cetera. And so, a couple things to note here, in case you don't know, is that vendor accounts are coded as a vendor account on your business credit report. You can see this. Just go and set up one vendor account of something that you need. Make sure it's not something that you're just going to do to do it. But let's say you actually needed some of this stuff, like a Uline or a Quill or something like that. Go set
Yeah.
that account up and then pull your business credit report. You're going to see it shows up as a vendor account.
Hmm.
It doesn't show
No.
up as a bank account, as a business trade line. It does not
Yeah.
show up. And so, like, if it doesn't show up as that, then the banks can see that too. They can
Yeah.
see the same thing that you're seeing on your business credit report. So that's not doing what you think it's doing. And another thing to keep in mind too is that if you're setting up a brand new relationship at a bank, even
Mm.
when you're 4, 5, 6 years deep, you're making 500K plus a year on a business, sometimes they'll still want to pull your personal credit on that first card because it's a brand new relationship.
Mhm.
So you're
Yeah.
not you're not like at no point are you I just people think that yes, there's these separate things and they can be over time, over years and years and years
Mhm.
of experience filing taxes and the business actually making money. Yes, it'll start to, for the most part, be treated as its own thing to where it can actually go and get large limits now, okay, without needing a social security number or a PG on everything. But it's not going to be 100% of the time. There's still going to be all these instances to where they are going to want somebody to sign on the dotted line, the PG for it, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And again, it really comes from disinformation, right? Or scrupulous people giving that information out. Businesses, at the end of the day, mine in particular, right, will stick with me. I can't speak for anyone else. Mine can and has done things on its own when it comes to business credit, right? But it's been established for quite some time. You're not talking about a business that it just popped up a year ago, just popped up
Yeah.
2 years ago. It has a bunch of assets under its belt and things that creditors, when they pull that business credit report, they can see those things, right? Because they all report to it. There's plenty of times where I've gotten things without my credit being affected because the business is solid, right? And
Yeah.
people, the one thing I've seen, and even in your group to an extent, uh, they want to jump all the middle steps, right? To get to that point. There's no quick fix, there's no quick bullet, there's no, like on the personal side, which is starting to go away, you have authorized users that used to help a lot of people, right?
Hmm.
You cannot do that on the business side and skip all the steps and say, hey, let me get this and it'll skip steps. They're always looking for a way to skip the steps. And if you skip the steps, you're going to be sadly disappointed on the business end of it, right? You
Yeah.
could have done that on the personal side. And to an extent now, though, a lot of banks are weaning those things out and have mechanisms in place to discredit those things. So then they're looking at your profile for those personal things. But on the business side, that doesn't exist. You have to warrant the steps. Like with my two brothers, I helped them establish themselves, right? We said, okay, here's your personal profile. You're solid, but you're missing a few things. Let's add those things. Let's establish your business. Let's build it up over this time. So then when you're fully ready, we can then go get you funding. We can then go get you business credit and you'll be a whole lot more solid and let that build itself up until that time. My other brother, I had to help him fix his credit, put some rock solid things in place, brought him into Navy because we have the same father, different mother. So I got into Navy from my mother's side. My grandfather was in the Navy. That's how I got in. And so I brought them both into Navy, established that relationship for them, and helped build their personal profiles even better, loans, et cetera, et cetera. Then when it was time, now let's go get you some business credit and build this thing properly. So when it's time for you to pull the trigger and actually get funding, you either get good limits or um, you don't have the issues that somebody would have saying, hey, let me just try this and see if this shortcut works or if that shortcut works.
Hmm.
Because the one thing I always tell people, you cannot shortcut business. It's not a realistic thing. And vendor accounts, I don't care what, you can add 20 of them. It's not going to help that process. So why? No, don't get me wrong. I have vendor accounts, but they're relevant to my business. So I have Quill, right? Everything I need office supply wise, I get there. Period.
Yeah.
It's easy thing. I think it's at like 15,000 or something like that right now. I don't really care. It doesn't matter because I'm never going to spend 15,000 with Quill. That's like ridiculous. But
Yeah, it would be.
but everything that I need from an office supply standpoint and anything else that fits, I get there, right? Got 30
Hmm.
days to pay it back. I have one of my business credit cards attached to it, pay it within a couple days. One of the misconceptions that I ran into very early when I first started to respond to things in different groups was somehow business credit wasn't like personal credit. And I don't know, I can't say where that started, but for some reason, people had this information that utilization on the business side didn't hurt you. Oh, it very much can hurt you, right? So if you've got 50,000 on your personal side and you have, let's say, 40,000 of that showing, it hurts you bad on your personal credit. It
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily affect you as much on the business side, but it absolutely can and does affect you. And it doesn't hurt the score as much because the scores don't range the same, right? Especially Experion, you're talking 0 to 100, right?
Yeah.
So that can only affect it so much, but they can see that you're carrying that type of money and say, we're not comfortable with giving you this 25, $50,000 business credit card, right? We're not comfortable with that. You're carrying too much debt as we see it, right? And then the thing about it is with business credit, Experion in particular, Equifax is way more detailed. And I always tell people, get those. If you're establish your business, I don't understand why you don't have them, right? Because you could see how these things are affecting you, what it looks like, and what you need to adjust in order to make that happen. But there was a thing for a while out there. People were carrying tons of personal debt and they were getting business credit just to remove the debt from their personal side, right? I responded to your guy in your group like, don't misconstrue it. If you're moving personal debt to business, that's not a legitimate business expense. You're going to have to pay that at some point in time. It's not just going to go away. And guess what? If you don't pay that, they will absolutely crash your personal credit and destroy your business in the process. it'll be a double hit for
Yeah.
you. So
Yeah.
there was a big push where people were moving on social media, moving personal debt to business without having legitimate businesses, right? And they were literally messing it up for the guys just getting in because banks became more hip to this. So you have situations like we spoke about. I got KeyBank, a KeyBank business credit card. I wanted to establish a relationship with a more localized bank, right? That are a little bit more generous when it comes to lending and different types of maybe real estate that I wanted to look into.
Mhm.
But at the time when I got them, soft pull to my Equifax, not a lot of paperwork at all. And easy process, got approved same day, everything. They gave me $25,000. Now that's not the case. They have taken that option away from you, and it's going to be all hard inquiries from this point on. Same thing with Citizens, another localized bank that I wanted to create to have another avenue. Got that card. I want to say that one's like 26 or something like that. No relationships previous with these banks. They have now taken that option away also, right?
Mhm.
No more soft pulls to get these things. And they now pull Experian, my banker I talked to, because I have one, right? A Citizens Bank by one of my properties. So they now take that. So a lot of these scam plays that were going on out there have been taken away. So it's more important now than ever that you line all this stuff up. Your business is set up properly, you're coded properly, you have the emails, you have the websites, you have all of these things lined up so you look legitimate, right? And then be legitimate, and then you stand on a stronger footing. Obviously, solid profile helps you with a startup company greatly and immensely. I cannot understate that. And then, so from that point, you don't really have much to worry about, as opposed to the guy who's trying to shortcut the system or he's trying to scam the system because he wants to remove a ton of personal debt.
Yeah, and that's a great point. That actually was a really hot topic. And I don't get how people kind of correlated. They're like, okay, so we move personal debt to business, like poof, it just disappears. No, this is not a magician act. You're still liable for that money. And moving it, first off, there's probably some tax liability there that you should have looked a little deeper into, first off.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
secondly, is that, it doesn't remove your liability as a person either. But I get why it got misconstrued, kind of, because people were thinking, okay, well, the goal is to keep your personal clean and to keep your personal scores high. Yes, but the money didn't, the balance didn't just disappear. And, carrying that balance still affects banks' lending abilities to you on the business side, just as it would on the personal side, but it's not affecting your personal score. That was it. That was the only thing to it. But it was weird that that was discussed. Another one, too, that I want to talk on real quick is the business credit cards will get you higher limits. Business
Hmm.
credit funding will be higher limits. And I hope that every time we mentioned this in the past, it was crystal clear in how we were saying this. But no, there's not just a magic wand. If I've got 5 credit rebuilding accounts with $1,000 limits each, that I'm going to go and the magic fairy is going to wave it over me, and then I'm going to get $15,000, $20,000 limits at Chase on a business card. No,
Yeah.
it doesn't work like that. I have to already have a nice solid base on the personal side with cards that they can use as comparable credit. Like I've got
Hmm.
to have a 10, 15, 20, 25K limit already on the personal side to even assume I'm going to get something close to that on the business side.
Yeah.
But if I got nothing on the personal, and again, I'm trying some backdoor little, scheme, some little play, whatever you want to call it, that I saw on Instagram, um, it's not going to work like that. And so a lot of times, what you'll see, that's when you get that like $1,000 limit on a business card or a $3,000 limit. It's like, holy cow, this is a horrible limit. There's no
Yeah.
point in getting this card. You should have just gotten a personal card.
Agree. 100%. Like I said, I don't do much social media, like even Facebook. I use it merely to keep in touch with family members that don't live in the state, right? So mostly just messenger stuff. If you were to look at the one that says it's my personal profile, there's no personal post there for like years, right? I don't do social media because of the misinformation and there's pure stupidity that's out there and what people will believe. There's been a plethora of YouTubers, social media creators that also have given misinformation, and people will take what they want. I've learned a lot through my life what you say and take out the pieces that fit what they're thinking and disregard the rest. It's why when I go on your server, I try to explain in detail, right? You'll see these drawn out answers. So then it's very clear what I'm saying. Like, and this is from someone, this is not someone who's learning, this is someone who's trying to educate, because I think education is the key. And one of the saddest things is when people don't have the information and someone gets over on them because they don't. And one of the things I always say in your group is a lot of information is out there. Just put in the footwork. If you really want to start a business, right? You you can learn a lot of it, like legitimately a lot of it from the internet, not social media in particular, because there's for every good social media creator out there, there's probably 10 bogus ones or 10 copy and paste ones, right?
Yeah.
That I for me personally, I'm not taking advice. I've never been that way. I'm not taking advice from somebody who hasn't done it,
Yeah.
right? That's always been my motto. Like in your group in particular, from the people that I'm aware of, like GW, I would take advice from him because he's done it. I can see, I can verify, right? Those
Yeah.
things. Like if you haven't done it, I'm not listening to you because you're just regurgitating something you've heard, right? I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah. Exactly.
You're a little different because you were promoting the proper information, right, in the proper manner, and putting it out there for people to absorb and go down the right path. But there's plenty of them, like Mike the Credit Game. I hated that guy. Oh my god. There
He
was a
used to
few of
owes
them.
me like 2, 3 G's.
Yeah, Jesus. Yeah. Who else? To an extent, like Credit Plug, I understand what he's doing, right? I remember him when he first came around.
I do too.
I
I
actually
remember.
DM'd with him when he first showed up on the scene, right? And yes, he learned along the way. I don't like how now he promotes everything, right? Because you can't just promote everything blanketly, right? It has to
Yeah.
be in its own categories or own realms. But he started from a bad point and he rebuilt himself. That I respect. You messed up, you learned along the way, and but you also have to promote that now, right? Because anybody coming to look at your content and they look at it at face value, they're going to believe everything you say because they're seeing stuff that they want or they want to do. But you got to give him the backstory. He doesn't do that. Like when he first stepped on the scene, his credit was not that good. He was in the rebuilding process. Most
Mhm.
people don't know that unless you communicated with him back then or you watched him back then, which I think was like about 4 years ago or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Um, to an extent, him, right? There's other ones out there that I just think are atrocious and they're promoting things because they're sponsored or they're,
Yeah.
things of that nature. There's I forgot the name of the channel, and again, don't want to give it much credence, but promoting all these fintechy things and the reality because they were being promoted by these fintechs or have deals with these fintechs, and a good portion of those fintechs no longer exist, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And the problem with
100%.
fintechs is the average Joe, when it comes to business in particular, the average Joe didn't know what a fintech was 5 years ago, right? They've learned about it through social media, but they've always existed, right? For the longest of times, and they don't know how they're structured or how they work because they're not a traditional bank. You can't just walk into a fintech bank, right? It doesn't work that way. It's not what they are. They're not brick and mortars. They don't create local relationships. It's not
Mhm.
beneficial. It's not cost effective for them. So they got trapped into these fintech things. And of course, these fintechs went up. It's one of the things I like about New York. Some say it's got archaic, draconian police state type thing, but I love it because if you're a fintech company, you can't get into New York's customer base without being everything being tightened up to the umpteenth degree.
Yeah.
BlockFi is the perfect example. If you lived in New York, you couldn't get BlockFi when BlockFi was promoting everything because they weren't allowed to push in New York. It was
Yeah. And look, now they're gone.
immediately. Now they're gone. And all of those people who didn't know any better and their state didn't protect them from it are lost a lot of money, are in a world of trouble because of it. But back to the business end of it. For me, it's it's information, right? Starting from that point, absorbing that information from the very beginning, understanding where you need to start, right? And I always tell people, I cannot reiterate this enough. It starts from you because no matter what you think, that business is you, period. No matter what title you want to give it, LLC, sole prop in particular, S corp, C corp, whatever it is you. If it fails on you. If you borrow for it, it will crush you. So if you're solid from the beginning, you understand, you've created your plan, what you want to do. Let's take vending, because I spoke with a guy in your group in a DM purposes, right? And I was trying to give him the information because I actually have like 9 vending machines throughout different places. And I said, you have to have a plan, right? You can't just get into something because you saw it and it was flashy, right? I'm not the flashy, shiny thing in the window that people get distracted by. I have a purpose in every relationship I create. So you need that purpose, right? But you have to start from a plan point. Say, okay, this is what I want. This is what I see in a year. This is what I see in 4 or 5 years. This is where I want it to be in 10. And then how do you go about that? And you implement that. But if you start from a solid base, meaning you're solid, your profile solid, and everything else is solid, and you have that plan mapped out, then I don't see you going wrong. It's the misinformation you'll get along the way. But having information and having the knowledge of it will prevent you from getting sidetracked from all those things like vendor accounts and stuff of that nature that do you no justice. And I don't want people to think that I'm completely shitting on them because they have vendor accounts. If you have vendor accounts, honestly, if they're of little use to you, close them, get rid of them. They don't really serve a purpose, right? But if you have them and they offer products in your business that you're trying to establish, keep them. You can use them. Use them for your business, because there's nothing. One of the benefits of having a business is cash, or disadvantages is cash flow, because a lot of businesses, especially when you're first starting up, lack cash flow, right?
Mhm.
You have all these business expenses you're building up. And if you have a vendor account, whether it's a net 30, a net 60, or whatever it is, that allows you a stretch to keep that cash flow and put it to good use, come back, pay that when the time is due, right? So they do serve their purpose to an extent, but they are never going to get you a $300,000 loan. There's not one institution on this planet that's going to say, "Oh, this guy's got 5 vendor accounts. Let me give him a $500,000 for a property." And let me give him 100,000 in working capital. That's not
Yeah.
going to happen. It's never going to happen. I mean, please show me somebody, and if they do, I would love to know what they've done to do that.
Same. Without them, going in and dropping huge deposits into the bank and getting their own personal
Exactly. Exactly.
business relationship manager, BRM, something like that. Okay, then maybe. But outside of that, no, I don't
Yeah, I
think
mean,
so.
it's the standard. I always tell people in the financial rules, right, world, right? It's where I started. The standard has always been, banks can loan out more money the more money they take in. So yes, that helps. But I don't care how much money you put in that bank. If your personal credit profile is shit, right? It sucks. And you owe a bunch of people money and you have a bunch of bad, like, negatives on your profile. What would the bank want to loan you money for?
Yeah.
What would they
Why?
want to
Why
give
would they?
you credit cards for? I used to see people pop up in this other group all the time, business credit cards, 3,000, 2,000. I was like, you missed a bunch of steps. That would always be my response without going into the details, because a lot of times I've realized, and why I pick and choose who I do respond to is, if I see those things happen, that means that you missed a bunch of steps and you didn't care enough about your business, or you didn't care enough to be informed on the right way to go about it, right? Like, for me personally, and again, I always take it back to myself. I had to readjust one of my brothers, because he thought that all the information I gave him and all of the stuff I helped him build up, that he could jump some of the rules. And he learned really fast he couldn't. And then, so
Mhm.
what did he do? He put his tail between his legs, came back and said, "Okay, I missed some things. What's going on? I thought I could do some things without you there." And I thought, no, there's a reason why. There's steps to this. If you try to take the shortcut, more often than not, you're going to be disappointed, right? This is
Mhm.
not, for me, I always tell people, it's not a short game thing. It's a long game thing, right? I have a daughter, and I plan, when it's my time, that she and my grandson are going to be fine, right? So I have a long game purpose. I'm not into the quick glorification right this minute. I never have been. It's always long term, right? It's why I do, like, me and Q talked about Google, and I said, who's the better long term? I'll beat you in the long term, in my opinion, when it comes to Google over anything in that sphere, Meta, whoever it is, right? Because I'm playing the long game. I'm playing the 5, 10, 20, 30 years down the road, that game. More often than not, I'm going to come out on that because I'm not impatient, right? I'm not trying to skip steps and I'm not trying to get rich quick. Am I good? I'm fine, right? But I don't, is $1 million influxed into my account going to change my lifestyle? No. Is $100,000 going to change my lifestyle? No. And so I've always stuck with the plan. It's one of my brother, matter of fact, I was just with both of them today, tightening up some things for them in their business. Is I told them the same thing today. I was like, I have a purpose, a path, and a idea of where I want to be 15 years from now, and pull back, maybe have more of an outside management controlling things while I just travel even more, me and the missus, right? And that's my end game goal at this point, right? But I'm not into flashy. I'm not into skipping steps. I only create relationships with banks, and this is the one thing I think we missed on is create those relationships, right? When you're in the beginning, starting up, create them. Allow those relationships to age, right? So then they have a track of you. And then when it comes time and you're ready, your profile's ready, you haven't missed any of the steps, go get the $25,000 business credit card, the $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 business credit card. Then the next step, to go get the $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 business line of credit. Then after that, the next step would be the business loan, right? The $300,000, $400,000 business loan. There's steps to it. You cannot move from one. You can't go from a $20,000 business credit card in the very beginning to a $500,000 business loan. You're missing a bunch of things in between, right? Whether it's the time, the relationships, the understanding, or all the different parts in between it, you're missing it.
Yeah. The bank has to see how you treat the trade line that they give you. So if you
Exactly.
start with a credit card,
100%.
regardless of the limit, they got to see how you treat it. Now, if you treat it good, let's say they scratch your back and they start you off at a 25K card. Okay, great. You gotta treat that right now. And they want to see how you're going to behave with that over the next 6, 12 months, especially 12 months. Because if you can show them that over a fiscal year that you're good, and we've been using it and paying it down, et cetera, then they're like, okay, why wouldn't we? They start to think, why wouldn't we give him more?
Yeah.
Everything else looks good, right? The scores look good, the numbers look good, the profile looks good, everything looks good, right? Because who knows what they might ask for document wise. But if all that checks out, and you've got a year of history under your belt with treating them right with the limit that they gave you, I mean, that just makes it that much easier for them to want to give you more. It's like look at your situation. Would you want to give you more money? Look at you and your profile, not as you, but as somebody else. Do you like it?
Yeah.
Would you give you money?
Agreed.
If not, then
Agreed.
don't.
100%.
Then you got to do something different. I am curious about this. Let's go back to the beginning. Do you have? I know you haven't done hundreds of these, but do you have like a kind of magical place you like to see the personal at? Whether it's like a certain amount of installments, a certain amount of mix, a certain amount of this or that. Do you have things where you like it to be before you want to jump into starting to get business? I'm just curious.
Yeah, for me personally, right? And again, it's institutional dependent, right? Having worked behind the scenes at JP Morgan, I've seen them from their standpoint financially. And to a degree, I had information with Chase and all that other stuff, and how that works too. But for me personally, I don't care what institution it is. It could be the big guys, let's say the big five, right? Everyone knows who they are when it comes to banking. Let's say the next mid-level, what they call mid-size, large mid-size, or the small guys, right? This can work for all of them. But I always tell them, if you look at your profile, right? And your personal profile has about, let's say, a year with 20,000 in total credit over 3 cards. How generous do you think those institutions will be? Judging it on a scale that all they have to go off of is your personal profile. Do you think that bank is going to want to give you a $25,000 business credit card? Probably not, right? You're too young in credit game. your profile isn't thick and deep enough. So for me personally, right, I haven't been in there. I say at the minimum, it needs to be 2+ years at the very bare minimum, right? And that is again going to be institutional to institutional, but at least at the very bare minimum 2 years, because a 2 year sample size for any institution is a long enough sample that says nothing bad happened. Because one thing I always tell people is the economy. Don't misconstrued recession with anything else. Like, we're always in a recessive mode, whether we're doing good or not. There's micro recessions that happen all the time, right? You're just not aware of them because they don't affect the economy as a whole, right? So there's ebbs and flows within the economy. But if you look at those things, institutions are say, okay, I got a 2 year stretch, ups and downs no matter what, that they're looking at your profile. You have this 2 year sample size, right? I always tell people you need installment loans. They are the greatest part of your profile. Why? Because all of it's debt, right? So credit cards are debt, installment loans are debt, but credit cards are only debt if you use them, and institutions judge it as so, right? So if you have $20,000 in credit, but you're not using it, they can see that because nothing's reporting, or very low limits are reporting you're not carrying much debt. But if you have a $20,000 car loan, a $250,000 mortgage, whatever it is, those are installment debts that you have to pay at a specific time every single month. There's no way around it, right?
Mhm.
So they can judge you greater by those stationary debts than they can credit card debts, because you only create the debt once you actually use it and carry a balance. And so for me, I I I always tell them you need to have those at a minimum, something of a year plus. That's a bare minimum for institutions to really get a beat on you, on how are you when we lend you money, and how are you when you have actual what they call revolving debt, which is what credit cards are, right? The
Mhm.
profile at a minimum needs to be two, for you to actually break into the realms of, let's say, the 10 to 15 to 25. I saw you mention something about $25,000 personal credit cards. I agree. Most people don't need 25,000 plus personal credit cards. Me personally, I have them? Yes. But are they necessary? No, because most people are never going to spend $25,000 on a personal credit card. That's a reality,
Mhm.
right? You don't, the average American doesn't make enough money to spend that, right? So,
Yep.
but does it look great? Yes, it does. Institutions see you with a 10-year, $40,000 personal credit card, $50,000 per, looks great, looks
Yeah.
great, but that's only a part of it. The installment loans, I can't tell you how many people I've seen missing those pieces. It's in particular the installment loans. In my opinion, 2 years of average age of accounts at a bare minimum to be extremely successful going down the road of getting business credit, right? At
Okay.
minimum, 2 years.
Got it. Cool.
Um, Same thing
Anything
with
else there?
installment loans.
Yeah.
You have business credit cards, right? Same thing. No matter what the credit cards are, that average age account needs to be two. The cards themselves, like we talked about earlier, I want to see the same thing. I want to see the $10,000, $15,000 card plus, right? Because
Mhm.
if you have a bunch of $2,000 credit cards, why would a bank want to give you a $20,000 credit card? They haven't
Yeah.
seen you with it. They have no basis to judge you on, right? Same thing with installment loans. You need to have those on your credit report, right? Is it necessary to have an open one? No, it's profile related, right? So let's take me for example. We spoke about it. I had credit since I was 18, right? My first car loan. I'm now 46. My profile is so long that I don't necessarily need an open installment loan,
Yeah.
right? To help me get things. But the average guy who might have 2 years of average age, or somewhere in that range, he necessarily probably needs one, especially if he wants to get business loans down the road. Because if they can't see you with those things on your profile, they have no real basis to judge you on, unless you do have a 10, 15, 20 plus year credit profile that they understand, and they know what they're looking at, right? So again,
Yeah.
back to the point, 2 years average of age on a bare minimum, right?
Okay.
Installment loans, credit cards with that 10,000 is the key for me, right? The 10,000 plus, because there's a lot of people that I can take somebody, we can build their credit up right from scratch, and they can get a $5,000 credit card with a relationship with almost any credit union out there, right?
Yeah.
That's a reality. Or a lot of the big banks, same thing. But to start to push that number above 10, there needs to be more depth in that profile, right?
Yeah.
Year, 2 years, stuff of that nature. So for me, that bare minimum is 10, because the back end of it is the promise that I want to get the same on the business end of it, right? And so that's where I start off. Installment loans, 2 years of average age on your accounts, built up over the course of the time, at least one or two credit cards that have like that $10,000 mark. So then when it's time to go to these institutions with your business in tow, because you always got to remember, they are going to pull your personal credit in the very beginning, and they're going to look at your business's profile.
Mhm.
And if one of them's okay and one of them is no good, you can run into a problem, whether it's funding, whether it's business credit cards and limits, right? I've seen a bunch of posts on there, guys trying to get different cards, and they say, oh, they offered me like a $3,000 limit. There's something missing there, right?
Yes.
Inevitably.
Yes.
There is something missing there, because business credit, the reality is, if everything is equal, business, they want to give you more limits because they know businesses spend more money. Like,
Yeah.
there's no scenario in my personal life, even with everything that I do, that I spend as much as I do when it comes to my businesses. It's not a thing. It's not even something that's possible, right? Because I don't have anything I want to buy that would equal to those levels. So they want to give the business more. But if I see those numbers coming in that low, you've missed a bunch of things.
Yeah. You've missed some steps, and that should be the red flag that you got to back it up and you got to look
Yeah,
because
no
you.
question about it.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah, for sure. All right, let's pivot. Let's what about any like big takeaways or big things that you want to discuss on like the setting up of the business itself and getting that up off the ground for a brand new startup? Anything there you want to touch on?
Yeah, one of the things that I definitely want to touch on is establishing, right, that
Sure.
business from the very beginning. Um, don't get me wrong. If an institution wants to, or a company wants to help you establish that business, and they're a legit company, you do your due diligence. It's not something that you just do automatically without doing your homework, right? So you can mess those things up if you just go and do it on your own without knowing, right? So setting it up properly, getting everything done, knowing the steps of your state secretary and how that applies, getting the EIN and going through that process. Those things are simplistic, right? If you just do a little homework, you can go do that on your own and not really mess that up. But if you're not what would I say? What would be the word? If you're not savvy enough to understand and navigate those state websites, then do some due diligence and look at a reputable company that can help you do it. Right. So then it's
Yep.
set up properly from the beginning. But I always tell them, don't miss no steps. Establish the company, state secretary, give it its identity, get the EIN. Do not pay for an EIN unless you're paying a company to establish that for you, because that was the one thing I seen out there a million times over, is people are paying for all these things when they don't necessarily have to. Right. Or they didn't know they didn't have to, I should say.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I would
So,
say if they bundle it with, like, being a registered agent and they just go ahead and
mhm,
file all the paperwork for you, okay,
100%.
yeah, maybe do that, but, like, to pay for them to set up the LLC for you, like, don't do that, please.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Don't do that.
100% agree. If you can find a legitimate company, right, that can establish the LLC, whatever state you're in, do the whole EIN, set you
Yep,
up with your website, set you up with your business email, because those things are essential. Because believe you me, institutions are looking for those things, right? They're looking for whether it's your website, whether it's you have a legitimate email that you're putting on these applications, the LLC, what's it structured as, what's its NAICS codes, et
mhm,
cetera, right? Your SIC code, et cetera, et cetera. They're looking at these things to see if you fit into what they're loaning. The one thing I always tell people is, to pivot around and come back in a second, is not all institutions are for every business. It's why I don't have
true,
relationship with all
true,
a bunch of institutions, because let's say my dog kennel, which I've had a long time, a very long time, right? That business is not the same as the real estate business. They're not even remotely the same. Now, will institutions lend to both of them? Of course, they're well established, right? But I want to know what this institution is offering and what do they specialize in, right? If
Hmm.
you don't know those things and you're just randomly going to get funding from an institution that might not necessarily be the best institution for your industry, you're doing your business a disservice. Do a little homework. Don't be in a rush. This is not a sprint. I always tell guys, credit building, business or personal, is not a sprint. It is a
Yeah.
marathon. It is
And
a
I would go ahead. Sorry.
no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say is that people are oftentimes trying to fit their business into the credit box because, oh, Jay just shot a video or this guy just shot a video and they're giving out 50K bags. No, no,
Yeah.
no. Fit the bank into the business, not the other way around. We got to get
Mhm.
squared up and understand and be clear about what kind of business we're running here. And that's where I think a lot of confusion comes in with the NAICS codes is they're like, well, if it's high risk, then they won't lend to me. No, actually, at the end of the day, that means very little. Like a high risk business, unless it's like adult entertainment or selling
Yeah.
marijuana or something outside of
Yeah.
the very clear red tape industries. No, that's not what that means. And, again, based on the profile, based on the person, based on the bank, those things
Mhm.
all don't matter. So one simple thing you could do is you could just call up the bank and say, "Hey, are you currently in a lending mode for these types of businesses?" And
Mhm.
rattle off your business type. Oh, and like they'll tell you flat out if they're hot on those things right now or if they're not. Big
Yeah.
banks tend to not care, but
100%.
yeah, national and credit union and localized, definitely just call them. Say, "Hey, are you currently in a lending mode for XYZ type businesses?" Yes or
Yeah.
no?
I always tell people, and I've said it in your group many a times, if I have a question, I'm going to reach out. I'm going to reach out. I'm going to talk to underwriting some way, some shape, some form, some fashion, because they're going to know. The regular rep is not going to know. They're not
Yeah.
informed with underwriting. Banks and institutions compartmentalize everything. Chase is infamous for this, right? Chase has underwriting for personal, underwriting for business. You cannot talk to the one about the other. They will
Yeah.
push you to the other, right? So I'm reaching out. If I want to know, perfect example, when Chase did the whole soft pull credit limit increases and they were going down a new path, which I always thought they should have done because they can, they're the biggest, right? I reached out. I wanted to know how this affected the personal side, how they were rolling it out, because I was one of the people that they put that before they rolled it out for everyone, they put it in my app, right?
Mhm.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, nah. So let me reach out. Let me find out. And I did. And I sat there and talked to a underwriting guy for about 15 minutes, and he explained the process of it. It's okay, fine. They're more willing to give you the information. They're not going to give you their trade secrets. That's a different thing, right? But when it comes to consumer issues or business issues that directly affect your business or you personally, they'll talk to you about it. Just call them. Most people
Yeah.
are either one, I found out, too lazy, right, to go do the footwork. And this is the people that I don't really talk to because I can pretty much tell, right? Like if you're not willing to do some footwork, I'm wasting my time talking to you,
Yeah.
right? Because I
100%.
can't I can't do it for you. So pivot back to the business aspect of it. I can never tell people enough how important it is to set that business up properly from the very beginning. Don't skip the steps. Do not say, hey, and one of the things back to the point of what we were talking about before is a lot of these things are going to go away. These soft pull accounts that you can get business credit due to scamming and people just moving personal debt to business debt and then not paying it, thinking that they're fine or whatever the case might be. These banks have been a lot of red's been put on their books over the course of time. But
Yeah.
establish the business properly from the very ground up, right? And if your profile is not in line with that average 2 years age, then pause on getting business, right? Build that up, but at the same time, establishing that business's length in business, right? So then when it's time and you have that 2 years of average age plus the 10,000 plus credit cards, at least one or two of them, et cetera, then you can come back to that. But all of that stuff needs to be lined up in that process, right? Because there's no easy fix, there's no easy jump path, there's no easy way to go from point A to point B. You're not going to just go poof and magically appear over here and get those 40, 50, $60,000 credit limits. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You're going to
Yeah.
be
I agree.
sadly disappointed if you do, but there's some institutions out there that are the companies that do offer to establish all of that from the very beginning for you if you want to, and we'll walk you down the process. Like I said, explain this stuff in detail, right? And a lot of states, a lot of things that one thing that I ran into that people are not aware of, right? And I'll keep it to New York because I've helped a few friends in New York. New York has this rule that within 6 months of your business being established, you need 2 public notifications that your business is doing business. People
Interesting. I did
complete
not know that.
they completely miss it. So when you establish your business, right, you need 2 public notifications. One is in a localized magazine or newspaper, right? And the other is a more national one that says this business is established and is in business to do business. It's within six
Interesting.
months of that business opening up. You have to do that. If you don't, you're not in compliance and you will lose your certificate of what you call it. It's been a long time. Shit. You're basically your ability to do business in New York. So
Got it.
your certificate of status, which says your business is in good status, right?
That's
If you
interesting
don't,
because back in the day, even when we used to like launch websites and
Mhm.
kind of spin up these internet brands, is we would always do press releases, which I don't even think people know. Most people listening to this, you guys probably don't even know what the heck a press release is, but I'll fill you in real quick. A press release is you would write up in a very specific tone, a very unique and interesting tone, granted, about the business, and it launched this new thing, or this conglomerate launched a new arm, which is like this digital product or this SaaS or whatever, and it would get blasted out to like multiple hundred sources. And a business was looked at as more legitimate if it did that. And back in the day, they did this, and that again, a business would be looked at as being more legitimate if they put out a press release around the launching of new programs, products, LLCs, etc. So it's interesting that they force that in New York. I like that
Yeah,
actually.
they actually do. Like that's something that has to be verified within the first 6 months of your business being a brand new business established. Once you do that, you're fine, right? Then the secondary thing, and I remember talking to many people in different groups, and some of them being in New York, not even remotely aware of this thing, right? This can literally take your certification of status away, which means you no longer have the ability to do business, right? And banks will see that. Once your certificate of status has been revoked, banks will know that and you will not get no credit from that, right? In New York in particular. Then there's something called a biennial, right? After 2 years of your business being in business, you have to fill out a biennial and you pay a fee for that biennial, right? Those things they're never talked about because they're not the shiny thing in the window. But so
Yeah.
you have all of these people popping up telling people to establish businesses, they can get in business, do all this stuff. But there's a lot of things from state to state that are required, but people
Yep.
don't know these. Like, perfect example, right? My business has foreign status in New Jersey. I own a property in New Jersey. I actually own the property that my daughter lives in. There, you have to file an annual report every year,
Yes.
every
Yes.
single year. And I don't see people talking about these things. And so the flashy, I get it, right? The $50,000, $40,000, $60,000 business credit card is the flashy thing, right? It's the very pretty thing to talk about. But the details underneath being able to get there are never talked about. And people are missing left and right on these things. I remember there was a guy, right? And I surprised him. He spent a ton of money having some company I never heard of establish his business. He lived in New York, but he established a business in Delaware. Why did he do that? Because they convinced him that Delaware is an anonymous state, which it is, right?
Mhm.
So it
Mhm.
protects the owners. But what they didn't inform him is that business can't do business in New York if it's not a foreign entity, because you now are taking a business outside of New York to try to do something in New York. You then have to register that business in New York to do business. Guess what
Yeah.
happens when you do that? You don't have that same anonymous protection in New York because New York's not an anonymous state. So the second he registered that business, him and all his information and his wife's information became public information. Bam.
Yeah.
He was
So
floored.
exo facto, there was no point in doing it Delaware if the
Exactly.
end goal was New York. And this reminds me of the Washington. For a while, Washington was hot for like shelf companies and starting up. Nevada was hot for a while. Delaware's still really hot. I don't know. There's like any given year, there's like 3 to 5 of these that all the I don't know what you call them, the family office type knockoff guys are selling. And
Mhm.
and that's pretty much it. Like they're selling that. But you brought up a great point. The annual reports every year. I was gonna
Mhm,
say the thing that I notice most people forget is the state filing fee that
mhm.
for 49 out of the 52 states, I think it's something like that, is every year. There's very few states. Arizona is one that you never have a state filing fee. Once you pay to set up a Arizona LLC, which is why it's a very popular destination, you don't have a yearly state filing fee. But for the rest of them, 99% of the rest of them, you do. So if you don't pay your state filing fee, the banks cannot lend you money because it'll show up that you owe for your business to even be operating in the state. So they cannot legally lend you money because you are unable to operate in the state because you owe the state money.
Yeah. No,
Very simple.
100%. Yeah, 100%. There's plenty of states that, and New York is very, and this is where I like because it protects you, right? And it protects your business, but at the same time, you need to know what you're doing. Back to the whole biennial thing, right? In New York, that's
Yeah.
done at the 2 year mark. The whole the publishing, it's what you have to do is you have to publish something in a local newspaper and something in a national, right? It doesn't matter what it is. You pay for that publication that says this business, here's its articles, it's established, ready to do business. And said, well, I feel back to your what you had talked about. New York has a lot of those things in play that no one knows or no one talks about because they either don't know or it's not popular to talk about, right? The whole business credit card with a $50,000 limit and all these benefits are the popular thing to talk about. But you can get yourself in a lot of trouble. And I hope I always my thing is when I do speak to someone to give them as much information so that doesn't happen to them, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not as easy and cut as dry to just start a business and say, hey, I want to do business. It doesn't work that way. If you want to do stuff through your personal level, that's different. It's easy. It's you, right? But there's
Yeah.
a lot of pieces that go into creating a solid business with a solid foundation. Because if your foundation is solid, the house is falling. At some point in time, it's going to fall, right?
Yeah.
And that the fall is the steps you miss or the things you don't know, right? And
Yeah.
so this information is readily available to people out there. They just want to shortcut it. And that's where I get disinterested really quick is when I talk to people or someone who seems like, nah, this person wants to skip some steps or they want a quick fix right now. They
Yeah.
want the 100,000 in business credit right now, but they're
Yeah.
not in a position for that. That's
Yeah.
that's not a thing, and I tune them out immediately.
Yeah, it's a weird thing in credit overall to where it's like, everyone wants to come to me with the emails and the questions when they need like 50K by tomorrow or 100K by next week. And it's just like, bro, where were you like 6 months ago, two
Yeah.
months ago? Like, why do you got to reach out to me at the ninth hour? Like, I don't even know you.
Mhm.
And I feel for you, but like there's so much groundwork that has to be done. It's just like, don't I don't know. What's that saying? The two best times to plant the tree is today and 20 years ago. It's kind of
Yeah.
like that. Um, so interesting. So let's pivot again. So
Okay.
what are some of your favorite banks, institutions, credit cards, whatever on the business side?
For me, and I think we spoke about this before
Yeah, we did.
personally, right? I love Chase, and it's not because I worked at JP Morgan. They just have a plethora of business cards that meet every standard that you could want in your business, right? Whether it's the ink, the main three ink lines that are older, right? Like the ink cash used to be called the ink plus, right? If you still have it, you have it, but it's really the ink cash. Um, those cards cover everything. Everything in business category you could possibly think of. Business phone, I know because I have it. Business internet, business whatever, right? Business cable, office supply, et cetera, et cetera. Advertisement, yada yada yada. With the preferred, it's basically the preferred is the business version of the Chase Sapphire preferred. The ink preferred is literally that a business version of that card with business pieces involved in it, but it has all the travel benefits to the extent that the preferred has. The ink Premier, I'm not really a fan of, but it has place, right? It has its place, and I don't currently own it or have it because it doesn't fit me.
Mhm.
That doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't fit someone else, but it doesn't fit me. Then they have a bunch of partner business cards, right? Like World of Hyatt, etc. United, if you fly for business purposes, Southwest, if you fly for business purpose, they have the plethora, like hotel, airlines, etc., etc. I don't do United and I don't do Southwest. We've spoke about this. I do American Airlines because of my status with them. So that is why I've created that relationship with Citi and have the Citi card and I have the Barclays Aviator business card, right? Because I'm an American Airlines guy for me personally. But Chase is my number one. But don't get me wrong, there are of other ones that I like the card, and I don't get cards just to get credit cards, business cards or personal, right? That's my motto. The personal cards have to bring me value. The business cards have to bring the business value from the standpoint of the business. The secondary benefit is that they bring me value too, right? But the main priority is the business. What do they do for the business? And then I go from there, right? So I create these relationships based on need and what I'm trying to do. I really like the PNC card that I have. Is it the greatest card out there? No. There's ones that I can say that are better, but it serves its purpose and it served its purpose when I got it, right? Same thing with Truist. I always see people promoting Truist, and it's not a knock on Truist because I have the Truist business card before they did away with the foreign entity thing I spoke about in your group way back last year. I got in before that happened, so I'm okay, right? Is the business card I have a top three? No, but it served its purpose because that card is relevant to my property in Jersey, and it allows me to allow my daughter, who is actually my foreign agent in Jersey, to do things for me, right? So
Mhm.
it served a purpose. I don't get me wrong. I just am not a super fan of them because they carry so much restriction and so much their annual fees dig into your business on a massive level, right? The cards are really beneficial and I have them, so I can't knock them. But if I have to choose for my business, I would choose Chase over American Express purely on the lack of restriction that Chase has and the lack of ridiculous annual fees to support that. But the understanding, I understand it, right? American
Yeah.
Express is not a true bank. It is just not a bank. It cannot compete with Chase dollar for dollar. No one really can when you talk about the JP Morgan machine, right? So I understand it. They need to have higher annual fees to pay their bill because they're primary a credit card issuing company, and that's how they make their money: annual fees and interchange fees, right? So it
Yeah.
is what it is. But do I love them? Yeah, I like them a lot better than a lot of other business credit cards that I have because they do serve their purpose. So for me, it would be Chase number one. Believe it or not, American Express is not number two for me personally.
Okay.
Um, they're probably number three, but close number three to number two. I would have to say, thinking about it from a business standpoint, hmm, I honestly, I think this institution overtook um, the previous number two and pushed them to number four when I got the relationship with them because I always heard their relationship bank, and I've said it in your group plenty of times. I do not like establishing relationships that aren't necessary, right? If I want something, I want it. I like A to B. I do not like A to A1, A2, A3 to get to B, right? And
Yep.
so I really like the Barclays Aviator business card. I really like that card. Partly
Mhm.
the American Airlines thing. A matter of fact, St. Thomas, I'm going to St. Thomas in February. And part of that's a business and a personal thing, right? I'm looking at something down there. But guess what? That card offers a lot of great benefits to my business because it has a lot of things built into it for it, right? The Wyndham Business Earner Card. I'm going
Mhm.
to Vegas on a business thing in March, and the Wyndham Business Earner Card gave me a lot of benefit to be able to go out there for free pretty
Yeah.
much, right? And do things and establish things. So I kind of like Barclays. They're underrated in my opinion because if you don't have a solid profile, yeah, you probably have to establish a relationship with them to get credit cards or to get good limits.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Or they're going to give you something crazy like a $500 limit, which is just embarrassing.
Yeah, 100%. I've seen a lot. You know what I mean? Outside of them, I hmm. Now
Okay,
you,
so that's one, two, three. So got
yeah.
Chase, Barclays, and then Amex. So who's
Mhm.
number four?
No, for me personally, and again, it's not so much that it's a great card. It's the business aspect of it. Bank of America. I have a
I was
Bank of
going to
America.
ask. Okay,
Yeah.
I was going to ask about that if you got it because
I
Bank of America is all over New York.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Like I said, Bank of America is everywhere I look in New York, so it's
Yeah.
easy accessible to me, right?
Okay.
Even when I'm upstate New York at like a property or I go visit families, there's Bank of Americas everywhere, right?
Yeah.
I really like the card. I like the money and the benefits it brings having certain amounts of money into the bank. I didn't get the card because it offers all these great rewards like Chase does, like right? These points,
Yeah.
transfer out, all this stuff. I chose it because the structure of the card, the zero APR intro, and the benefits that are added on when you push money into the account.
Hmm.
So, like, they
Yeah.
have a reward system that I can understand, and I think adds great value to the money you're carrying with them. And I think Q touched on this about the money he has in and how it's boosted his benefits. I thought that was genius because I had never heard people talking about it until I heard him speak about it, right?
Yeah,
And
the platinum status.
Yes, exactly. So the more money you carry, it works on both ends, right? And so
Yep.
Bank of America was number two. And I only currently have one business card with them, but I have a business relationship with them. And I have a business RM that I deal with, a young lady. Matter of fact, I keep all my information for this purpose so I can just quickly, readily reach out to them. But I have, what do you call her? Her name is Jesselyn, and she's my relationship manager at Bank of America. And so
Sure.
whenever it's time to make a move, I'll just reach out to her, right? Easily and
Yeah.
make those things happen. But I like it for that purposes. But Barclays jumped them when I established that relationship by getting those two cards, the Wyndham Business Earner and the Barclays Aviator for
That makes
American
sense.
Airlines. Because the depth of what they brought to me outweighed the money I need to carry with Bank of America and the extra benefit it pushed to the account.
Hmm. That makes sense. That makes sense. Cool. Um, what else? What else do we need to talk about with this?
Eh, in closing on this topic, my thing for
Sure.
people that I want them to take away from this is don't try to skip steps, right? Get your personal profile in order. At While you're doing that, establish your business. Have your business aging itself while you're getting that profile in the order. If it's already in order, then obviously that's not necessary. But if you're starting from the point where your profile needs to be in order, like I said, 2 years average age at minimum, right? 1 to 2 cards at like a $10,000 limit, ideally, right? If you're
Mm.
already at that point, then just establish the business, right? Let it age itself a little bit. Make sure you establish it properly. Put it in its industry. Don't be afraid of all these things. Like I tell people that ask me, how do you get credit funding with a real estate business? Because I'm solid,
Yeah.
right? And the business is now solid. So when I establish it, I told you before, I still have the Renaissance group. It's still there. It's the overbearing company, right? That engulfs everything else. I just don't do nothing with it, right? But when I established it, I was already solid. So I was able to go get that. I was able to be a real estate company and get funding. These are tricks that, for whatever reason, people tell you the wrong information, whatever their purpose is to mislead you on social media that real estate can't get funding. That's a crock. I'm here to
Yeah.
tell you it's a crock. I've gotten funding. I could go on live and push and put down all of my business credit cards that are just in the real estate's name and prove otherwise, right?
Mm.
And so it is what it is. But just establish the business properly. Get the business set up with the state secretary. Get the EIN. Get the business email. Right. If you're not going to invest in your business, why would a bank want to invest in your business? If you're not going to go get a paid email, if you're not going to go get all of these things that shows you are serious, then why would a bank want to invest in you?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, it
100%.
doesn't cost that much for a business email comparable to where you're trying to go, right? Get your business's website set up, right? Establish all of those things. You don't even have to set the business's website up from the beginning because you're figuring it out. Like, what do you want it to be? How do you want to set it up, right? But at least buy that domain and then you can establish it along the way, right? And build that website out. Do all of those steps, get them in place. So then when it's time and you're ready to go get the funding, the bank looks you up. The Google thing is essential, right? Because let's keep it real. 90+% of information out there is gotten through Google. Businesses will easily Google your business, or institutions will easily business or Google your business and see if it's legit. See
Yeah.
if they can look it up, right? A simple Google search will tell them that. That's free. Just establish that. Push it there, right? Push it onto Google. Create a business account on Google. It's free. And then people can search your business on Google, whether it's institution, but give it all of the firewalls per se, right? So then banks can't blast through you and say, nope, 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 this doesn't check off, this doesn't check off. You know what I mean? So invest in that business if you really want to run a business, establish it from the very beginning the way you want it to be. And then when it's time to come on the back end to get that credit funding, whether it's business credit cards, um, business lines of credit, business loans, the bank doesn't have nothing to look at to deny you. And
Yeah.
then you can come back with your success stories, or you could tell family members, or you could tell people in Wallet Monkey Group, look at, I followed the steps and this is the benefit of it. I like the one guy in your group that I saw, G Dub has been helping him out for quite some time. And you see the success story, right? G Dub gave him some information and kept giving him information. He followed those steps and he's getting a bunch of credit.
Yeah.
I love stories like that because those people want to know, they're absorbent of the information, they implement those steps, and then it becomes success, right? He knows, he's been around longer than me, right? Doing this. I've got what, 28 years of doing it. He's got like what, 40, 50.
I don't
You know what I
even
mean?
know.
He's like
Long time.
his American Express first card. I was only 6.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's been in this
Yeah.
world for a long time. If you don't take advice from anybody and implement it, take it from him. He seems to know what he's talking about. I've never seen him miss the mark. You know what I mean? And so I
Yeah.
like stories like that when I log on and I see these success stories, but I don't like when people try to shortcut the steps and then they end up upset with the result, right? And
Yep.
again, I always tell them, if you don't invest in your own business, why would a bank want to invest in you?
Yeah. 100%.
It's simple. Like, if you're not, and I agree with what you said earlier, put yourself in the bank's position, right? Would you
Yep.
loan to you if it wasn't you?
Yep.
Be honest with yourself. If you say no, then you got your answer.
Yeah, there you go. And then more importantly, what would be a yes then?
Mhm.
What would it have to look like to be a yes? Reverse engineer that. Maybe that might be easier for some people to see visually than the different ways that we've been explaining it till this point. I don't know. Some people do like to work backwards, visually. So if that helps you, then do that. Right.
100%. I mean,
Yeah.
whatever works to get you to that point. We're not talking about scamming. We're not talking about taking shortcuts and short steps, because on the business end, more so to the point, that doesn't work. There's
Yeah.
too many things out there in your group alone, and plenty of other groups. I'm pretty sure you can go search that doesn't work, or they end
Yeah.
up with the $1,000 business credit card. What is that a thing? Right? Or the $2,000 business credit card. Like, what? That's a thing? Like,
Yeah.
you missed a bunch of steps, right? So
Yeah.
again, I agree. Reverse engineer. Look at it from different perspectives. What didn't you do? But if you start from the base that I gave you before and you establish that business right from the beginning and you build along with that business and you don't miss any of the steps or try to shortchange the steps, because I'll tell you, people look at it like this, right? And I had this problem with my brother, so I can speak from experience with one of them, right? He's looking at it like, okay, I got a state filing fee, I got all these fees, I got this stuff, I got to do this, I got to put out these promotions, like articles of my business being established. I'm putting out all this money with nothing in return,
Yep. Yep.
right? And
Yep.
he's the norm. I had to get him away from that thinking, which was easier because he sees me, right? But most people that are trying to establish don't have someone like myself as a base that they
Yeah.
can directly talk to, right, in person. So it was easier to get him out, but it's harder to get someone out of that thought process because yeah, you're going to have to put out a few dollars in order to establish your business. But the
Yeah.
back end of that, right, is so much more rewarding because one, you can create your creation, you could see it grow, you can get all of this funding to help it grow. And then 5 years down the road, that 500, 6, 7, $800 you spent looks like chump change.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Even if it ends up being over that, over 1,000, like it
Yeah.
doesn't matter if you're playing the long game.
Hmm.
You know, that's still a very cheap price to pay for what the long-term vision of this whole thing is.
Mm,
If
100%.
we have a long-term vision. Now, if we don't, and we're, you know, like we said, we're operating off the seat of our pants here, and we're jumping from scheme to scheme
Hmm.
because YouTuber Joe over here told us to. We're not gonna get the result we're looking for, man. And I would argue that's not even what you're actually looking for. So maybe it's time to sit down, take some time to really get clarity on what you actually want to do.
Yeah.
You know, and then go from there. So I think we've harped on those points well enough. I hope that you guys listening get some great takeaways from this, and it helps you refine your strategy, your process, and what you're trying to do. Rev, I really appreciate you jumping on with me
No
and sharing.
problem. Not a
Yeah, thank you so
problem.
much. All right, so let's cut it there. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Hey, you should subscribe. 60% of you are not subscribed yet. Right there. Okay, bye.